And then, of course, naturally, we're going to be looking at all of these issues with subject matter experts. I don't know if,
as usual,
if Jeffrey is going to be one of them.
Yeah, you forgot to talk about politics yesterday, which is quite critical that we
No, he loves politics so much.
Because at the end of the day, the decisions they make move the levers. It can change the nation and direct it either in the right direction or in the wrong direction. So when they make a decision, the experts are only analyzing the impact of those decisions. So we talked about politics yesterday. But before we get to the serious talk, I also want to remind those of you who don't follow football that Nigeria has secured 9 points at the Africa Cup of Nations.
Jeffrey, where is the football coming in?
At least something to cheer about. We're ending the year. We're at the AFCON.
We won.
For people like me that don't.
we won yesterday 3 goals to 1
against Uganda. That's what I'm saying. Just before we get to we want to switch to serious talks. Let's remind our people there's something to unite around, which is football. We're talking about young people as well. So, just to remind you, we have 9 points.
Congratulations.
At least this time around, there are not 9 basis points.
We're cool and clear.
No, but you guys will still do your permutations and calculations.
No, there's no permutation and calculation.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Now we're all clear for the next round. But on a serious note, so we're talking about all the things that Aya said to the judiciary quite quickly, and I totally agree with Ayo. The lowest hanging fruit when it comes to democracy, which I call literal democracy is all about optics, is the rule of law. What separates the developed economies from what we have here, developing economies, is primarily the rule of law. Anything that doesn't follow the rule of law, well, to say you're a banana republic, all kinds of names will be called. So that is the lowest hanging fruit. That's why that conversation is absolutely critical for us to look at it from the usual civil cases to criminal cases to some of the most controversial cases, political litigation.
And we had a couple of them in 2020.
A lot of them. One is even still on right now.
Exactly. But I think it's best captured by a judiciary reporter. Ella put together the high points or the highlights of those judiciary actions, decisions, and impacts. And she captured it in this report, and we'll have the conversation right afterwards. Over the past year, Nigeria's legal system has undergone a significant transformation through a series of landmark judgments that have not only reinterpreted existing laws, but also reshaped the boundaries of civil liberties, electoral integrity, and institutional accountability. It was also saddled with the responsibility of upholding the rule of law, despite its scrutiny by Nigerians. But the year was not without drama. Several suits challenged the constitutionality of President Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State in March 2025, questioning its legality and impact on the nation's democracy. However, the Supreme Court ruled on December 15 that the president had the powers to declare a state of emergency in any part of the country to foster the breakdown of law and order, and also to suspend elected officials within a set time frame. The Apex Court also affirmed the death sentence passed on Miriam Sanda for the death of her husband in 2017, though the president had earlier granted her pardon and commuted her sentence to 12 years imprisonment. Lawsuits arose from internal party democracy, including the case by aggrieved PDP members seeking to stop the party's 2025 convention due to alleged rule violations. 2 groups got conflicting rulings from courts of coordinate jurisdiction in the matter, which is expected to shape the political scene in 2026. The Nnamdi Kanu IPOB case got an accelerated hearing this year, with significant focus on the admissibility of evidence, the legality of IPOB's prescription, and Kanu's constitutional rights.
I'm asking every simple question. No, wait, please, look, this is Supreme Court. Wait, hold on. This Supreme Court here. Hold on a second. I said, hold on. Let me please your lordship, please.
Judgment was delivered on November 20, where he was found guilty of terrorism and sentenced to life imprisonment at a Sokoto prison. There were other terrorism-related cases, though none have completed judicial process. A major development saw the UK Supreme Court rule in Nigeria's favour regarding the P&ID gas contract dispute, setting aside the award due to alleged fraud.
Daily processes.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria emphasized urgent reforms, including digitizing court processes and increasing judicial personnel to curb corruption and improve efficiency. The judiciary faced intense scrutiny and calls for internal reforms to restore public trust, with legal experts highlighting issues like funding and the conduct of officials.
The public increasingly measures
Efficiency was the watchword this year, as Justice Kekere Ekun revealed at the 2025-2026 legal year ceremony that the Supreme Court delivered 369 judgments, a nearly 50% increase over the previous year. The court also cleared a massive backlog, considering over 2,200 motions and appeals. This became a possibility as the Apex Court reached its full constitutional complement of 21 justices. The internal cleansing remained a priority. The NJC recommended the compulsory retirement of at least 10 judges this year and issued warnings to several others for various degrees of misconduct. Legal practitioners are calling for stronger implementation of laws that will drive meaningful reforms in Nigeria's criminal justice system and ensure the swift dispensation of justice.
As a matter of necessity, the Foundation routinely considers the state of the existing laws governing the powers and functions of all relevant criminal justice institutions, such as the Nigeria Police and all law enforcement agencies operating in Nigeria. We also consider the performance of the law courts with criminal jurisdiction.
With 2026 in view, the focus remains on building a confident judiciary, which is a theme of this year's All Nigerian Judges Conference under a new leadership, with a clear and consistent message of fairness, professionalism, and free from external influence. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
So that's a review of what played out in the judiciary or that sector, which is quite critical for everyone. We talked about the rule of law when we started off the program, and that's our focus, judiciary, and all the decisions that were made, the impact it had made and it will make in 2026, and what we'll be looking out for. And I can tell you for free, political litigations is one of those things we'll be looking out for as far as the election season is concerned, and we're expecting it as soon as possible. But let's bring in our guests, two senior advocates of Nigeria, right here in our Lagos studio. We have Senior Advocate Wahab Shitu joining us. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program, and then compliments of the season.
Compliments of the season. Thank you for inviting me.
And joining us virtually here in Lagos is a Senior Advocate of Nigeria as well, Mr. Yemi Kande Johnson. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program as well.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you. Good evening. Season's greetings.
Let me start with you, Senior Advocate Yemi Kande Johnson, on a quick review. Our report that you saw talked about the Nnamdi Kanu case, talked about other cases. In fact, there are other big cases that are happening. When we do most of this review, we look at the big highlight, but there are other subsidiary issues that have been decided by the court, which is one of the things that the report highlighted that has to do with backlogs and all of that. But I want you to give us your own overview of how you want to assess the performance of the judicial sector across civil cases and criminal cases and even political litigations, just like an overview.
Okay, well, the judiciary is people. And so obviously the credibility of the individuals who occupy offices who carry out the functions of the judiciary is relevant. And there's no judicial or legal system which is not a work in progress anywhere in the world. And ours certainly is one that is a work in progress. But I could assess it on the basis of events that have occurred and on the basis of steps that have been taken. But I started by saying I think that the people in the judiciary are the most important first point of contact for those of us who would deal with the system in any capacity, members of the public, members of the legal profession. And I think that it's my fair conclusion that while there are a considerable number of problems with the efficiency, the effectiveness, and the integrity of our legal system, that in the last year, and I think therefore going into 2026, a number of steps have been taken, which indicates, to my mind, that the current Chief Justice appears to have a clear vision for the reputation and effectiveness of the judicial system, and she appears to have the strength of character that is required to progress some of these initiatives, which would meet, in many cases, entrenched, I don't want to say behavior, but entrenched habits, which may be difficult to dislodge after several years. So, for example, the testing of the integrity of proposed judicial officers is something that has not been done in a public way before, with public feedback and testing the character of those who would aspire to judicial office. This is very important because the appointment of judicial officers is critical to confidence, to the efficiency, to the effectiveness of the system. And secondly, another thing which I thought was very important, because public confidence in the judiciary is critical, is the decision of the court to summarize its decisions. And not every man on the street can read 700 pages of legal verbiage, but most educated Nigerians can read 5 or 6 pages of summary, which of course is what the House of Lords or now the UK Supreme Court does, because justice must be delivered to the ordinary man on the street, and he should be able to understand it. And sometimes the language of law is so obscure and convoluted that meaning is lost. And when meaning is lost, it's easy for suspicion to take its place. So I think that I would assess the judiciary at any stage on its efficiency, its effectiveness, and its reputation. And I think that there are some signs which may be encouraging in that respect.
Let me come to you. I guess what your fellow learners is talking about has to do with, which is quite important, the reputation, the integrity, because the judiciary itself is always on trial. They said when the case is before the judge, it's not just the case, it's also the judge that is on trial. And I remember lately, one of the things that was commended for what the Chief Justice of Nigeria did recently was about 62 names were submitted to be called to the bench or to be judges at the Federal High Court, where 34 of them could not pass the integrity test, which is a good signal. But in your view, how would you assess the judiciary in 2025?
Well, I think largely the judiciary has fared very well. There are rooms for improvement. That we all know that there is no perfect system anywhere. But since the Chief Justice of the Federation, the current CJ, took over, particularly in 2025, we've seen remarkable improvements in terms of judicial integrity and independence. And more importantly, a conscious attempt by the judges to address the phenomenon of corruption. And you've just cited a very recent example, which is unprecedented. It's something that we have not seen before. Judicial appointments being advertised in order to get feedback from the public. And one of such feedback has led to the disqualification of a number of people, because it is important when you are talking about the judiciary to look at the issue of judicial independence as well as judicial integrity. It is important that we have a judicial system that engenders confidence, trust, and that is perceived not to be corrupt, but that people are willing to trust in. To the ordinary people and citizens are willing to say, oh, this is a judiciary that will deliver justice, because ultimately the destination is the attainment of justice. Justice is seen to be delivered when the average man, or woman, walks away with the feeling that justice has been delivered. So the test is really with it's an objective test, so that people must be able to trust the judiciary. The judiciary must engender confidence. The judiciary must be peopled by elements of integrity. And in terms of that, yes, we have not gotten to the destination yet. It's still work in progress. But we all know what the fundamentals are, what a judiciary ought to aspire to achieve under a democracy. You mentioned one of them, which is critical: respect for the rule of law. There's no way you can practice democracy effectively without adhering to this rule of law principle. It is when democracy conforms with respect for the rule of law that you say it is what the why. So, but when you have a democracy that subverts the rule of law, a democracy that is defined by corrupt practices and the lack of due process, then you say that's not democracy.
But sir, you know, while from a survey that's online, while many agree that efforts have been made this year, you know, getting the confidence of the people, a lot of people are very skeptical about political interference, and it's so tightly woven when you look at the political interference, the political players, and the judiciary.
Yes. It is undoubtedly clear that the justice system cannot command public respect if judges are perceived as dependent, intimidated, or vulnerable to influence. Like you have, but you see, it is work in progress. I think for us to be able to make progress, we should reinvest faith in the justice delivery system as a people. It's not good to proceed under the assumption that the judiciary will not deliver justice. It's a two-way process. The people must donate confidence to the justice delivery system. In return, those who are saddled with the obligation of dispensing justice must live above board. Must ensure that the process is fair, and that the people themselves are not corrupt, and that justice is delivered in a free and fair manner, in a manner that will engender confidence.
Okay. Well, let me come to you, Mr. Candy Johnson. When we started the program, one of the things that Jeffrey was saying is that politics definitely plays a huge role in everything that concerns us as a nation, and the judiciary is no doubt usually in the middle of it. So a good number of political cases happened last year, and usually it will be like people are waiting for what the judiciary will say to see exactly how the case itself will be perceived. The year opened, for instance, with litigations from 2023 into 2024, and then we had this, politicized issue of Nnamdi Kanu, the River State emergency rule judgment, and all those things. It's sometimes difficult, Mr. Candy Johnson, to excuse the independence or the fairness of the judiciary when the sentiments are high, isn't it?
I understand you to be saying that people will not trust the results of a judicial decision because they have certain expectations. Have I got you right? I think, first of all, that it's a mistake to judge the judiciary primarily on these high-profile political cases. The vast majority of work that judges do is in personal contracts, banking, commercial debt, even criminal law. I mean, the criminal law is at least as important for the stability and progress of society as political cases. But you're right. What people see most of all are these most sensational political cases. People take highly partisan views of the potential result without hearing the evidence, without listening to legal arguments. And people form views which become hard and entrenched, and they would be unwilling to accept a decision that did not conform to their own previous understanding. This is normal, but this is not a valid way to judge the judicial product. We recognize that is the case. The judges recognize that defending their own integrity, defending their own reputation is a matter that cannot be done by public statements and speeches. It can be done only by the work product that they deliver. People must judge them by what is delivered in the public. And there will be those who would contest the integrity of that judicial product. This is inevitable, especially in the highly febrile atmosphere.
Just one thing, that you said now, my apologies, Mr. Candy Johnson, just one thing that you raised now, people, and that brings me to the issue of the legal practitioners themselves. On all sides, there is always a lawyer. On the for side, on the side for, on the side against, there is always a lawyer. And a good number of times you wonder, don't you know that this one shouldn't come to court and these things do come to court? So when we are scrutinizing the judiciary, shouldn't we also be looking at the practitioners?
I agree with you. There's no way you can even talk about the judiciary without focusing on the practitioners. Whether at the level of the bar or at the level of the bench, the judge primarily is first and foremost a lawyer. And that's because by virtue of his legal training, that's why he or she aspires to that position of being a judge. So it is important for the lawyer to rise highly to the demands of professional standards and ethics.
Do we have a system to ensure that the lawyers are themselves above board? Because it raises questions sometimes.
The system, there's an entrance system. For instance, we have rules of professional conduct that, defines what the lawyer is supposed to do and what the lawyer is not supposed to do. The rules are there. I think the advocacy is not whether the rules are there or not. We all know the rules are there. I think the advocacy should be, enforcing those rues.
It begs the question.
Yes.
Do we know that, you lawyers tell us, some of you tell us that it should be difficult, if not impossible, for a lawyer to be judging the judgment, if I can put it that way, of the Supreme Court. But a good number of cases have happened in this year that we've had legal practitioners come out and say, guys, I don't agree with the judgment of the Supreme Court and all of that. And it leaves the citizens, people who, like us, who don't know much about these things, wondering exactly, if we can't trust the judiciary, then who do we trust?
Well, the question is not whether we can trust the judiciary. And the question is not whether the judges can be criticized. In all civilized jurisdictions around the world, judgments are subjected to public criticisms. You understand me? The fact that judgments are criticized is not in itself what is wrong. It is when you criticize a judgment based on wrong premises. For instance, some of the commentaries you see on air by lawyers, some lawyers, not all lawyers, are commentaries that are made without being informed. For instance, you should know how the judice functions. Before you can criticize the judgment, you must be privy to the processes. You must be privy to the record of proceedings. You must be privy to the arguments advanced. And then you must also be privy to the justification for the judgment. In every judgment, there's a justification. If a judge makes a pronouncement on any issue, there must be a justification for that pronouncement. That is what you interrogate if you want to do a fair critique. You understand me? You cannot come on air to criticize or undertake a critique of any judgment if you yourself, you have not taken steps to read the judgment. And most times, most of these criticisms are offered in the public space without the benefit of reading the judgment. So I think the advocacy is that it is not wrong for us to criticize because judges are human beings. They can make mistakes. And it's only when we criticize them, some of these mistakes, that they can, improve their performance. But those criticisms must be fair, must be objective, must be constructive, must be informed. If you don't, for instance, if you don't read a judgment, and then you come on air to criticize the judgment, that would be an unfair assessment.
Okay, let's build on that. Mr. Candy Johnson, let's bring you in on this particular issue of this judgment. So I have two cases. And funny, those cases are from the same state, Rivers State, where there was an incident of the defection and whether there was a defection appropriation bill. Now, the judge, one of the justices of the Supreme Court, has said, look, as we see that, okay, you're saying that this case is not before the court, but when you're talking about the appropriation, the dramatics personnel involved in the appropriation brings that particular case before the court. So on that premise, she spoke on the issue of defection, which became a very controversial issue. We saw the issue of about emergency rule, or whether the Supreme Court has powers, or whether the president has powers to suspend elected officials, such as the governor, deputy, or the House of Assembly. Well, the Supreme Court did not exactly say yea or nay, but what they now did was what we now call it a discussion after the preliminary objection was upheld. So at the end of the day, it leaves everybody a bit confused. So my question is, what happens when we have judges speaking on issues that are not the the main merits of the particular case, and then keeping all of us confused as to what exactly is the decision of court or the pronouncement of court, because these are not enforceable order of court, but it has become a statement that people are beginning to pontificate over, if you get my drift.
Okay, well, can I first of all comment on the subject of your previous discussion about the behavior of lawyers? I think that a fundamental weakness in our system of justice, a major reason for its inefficiency and for lack of confidence, is the inability of the professional system to hold senior lawyers accountable for bad behavior. This was the subject matter of a speech I gave maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago to Lagos Bar at their annual dinner. The fact is that there is a presumption, or there is an assumption generally, that senior lawyers who should be modeling the highest standards of professional behavior very often do not. And they have a habit and a reputation for escaping scrutiny. No one can tell me of a senior lawyer who has been successfully processed through the disciplinary process of the bar. Okay, 1 or 2 of them have faced criminal conviction for actions they've had. But this is a problem. By and large, senior lawyers think that they are not bound by the rules of the profession and that they can behave in a way that is beyond correction. That is a problem. If senior lawyers can be corrected and held to account, judges will know they can be held to account. Junior lawyers will know they need to be held to account. Many years ago, a famous lawyer called Fred Egbe, who did a famous libel case against Justice Adefaras, and then Chief Judge of the state, made the acid remark, which may not be correct, but it shows you where we might be going. He said the problem with the law in Nigeria is that the junior lawyers bow to the judges, and some judges bow to senior advocates. The fact of the matter is that senior advocates of Nigeria
Sorry,
are the
Mr. Kandi.
princes
I want
it's
to
their
ask you,
responsibility.
sir. Mr. Kandi, sorry, I want to ask you. I mean, you're a senior lawyer, and you're saying that senior lawyers are not being held accountable. So, I mean, it's easy to say you're a senior advocate of Nigeria. What should be done? What moves are you making so that we see this actually come to pass? Because, I mean, for us out here, we can hardly do anything about this.
Well, speaking personally, I consider that if I make a professional mistake, if I act in a way that is not a proper model to juniors who follow and watch my conduct, I should be subject to reproach. As to what we can do, in many cases, well, there is a notorious case right now, and I am one of the complainants to the disciplinary committee about the conduct of a senior lawyer whose behavior has brought international disrepute to our profession. But the fact of the matter is that there should be more lawyers willing to do that. We cannot, if our house is not kept in order, we can't expect people to pretend that we're noble and honorable. It's not about wearing a fancy gown. We have a responsibility. The seniority that I have, I consider to be a responsibility. It's called a privilege, but in fact, it's a privilege that comes with a huge task. And I think that if senior lawyers, who are the most visible practitioners of law in this country, even more visible than the judges, if they behave in a certain way and it is wrong, if they are reproached, and if the idea is not that they can escape reproach, then there will be a model for others to follow. So yes, I'm a senior lawyer, and I'm perfectly comfortable to say that in my experience, senior lawyers too often model behavior which undermines the integrity of the legal profession.
Mr. Kandi Johnson, so when you say bad behavior, maybe you give us specifics. And in addition to that, the question I asked about the judges. So I gave a classic case where a preliminary objection was upheld, yet the judges still went ahead and spoke on the substantive issue. That should have ended, and it became a controversial issue today where everybody is choosing and picking as to what the judges have actually said. And this is at the highest court in the land.
Yeah, well, that's a problem for the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, giving a pronouncement, ought to recognize the whole range of decisions it's made before. It ought to recognize the potential impact of any comments it will make for cases that will come thereafter. This is why it's the highest court. Now, there's a problem. Another problem with the Supreme Court, of course, is that it's overburdened with a high degree of irrelevant and pointless cases. That is just a fact. I mean, I was told of a case of a one-room shop in Kuje, which went all the way to the Supreme Court, over 30,000 naira. This is a waste of judicial time. The Supreme Court should be deciding the idea of our law fundamentally and deciding principles which would apply across the board. But they have to be faithful to those principles themselves. It is not acceptable, and it undermines their own integrity and the public impression of them, if they give inconsistent decisions, if they give one decision and they don't follow their own advice. This is the most senior court in the land. If you expect senior advocates to conduct themselves with the highest degree of professional behavior, which I do, then I'm entitled to also demand that in the High Court and the Court of Appeal and in the Supreme Court, that they must recognize that consistency is the method by which precedent comes down to the public. If you know the way a court is going to decide the matter because it's spoken clearly on the subject, people are not going to contravene that position. But part of the problem we have now is that the variation in court judgments, even within the Supreme Court, is so unruly that people think they can take a chance. I'm going to go to court because maybe I'll roll the dice. The law is not clear. Judges are saying inconsistent things. I'll take my chance. It may favor me. This should not be the case. People should be worried to approach the Supreme Court because of the clarity and certainty of its judgment and the assurance that they should have that the law on the topic has been clearly stated and it will not be reversed. And then when lawyers bring cases which are frivolous and unfounded, then they ought to be punished.
All right, I think I should come to Mr. Shitu right here in the studio about what Mr. Candid talked about. Cases that are not supposed to end up in the Supreme Court actually do. I know that one of the innovations of this year is the mobile court, and those smaller courts that are supposed to handle the smaller cases. But I wonder, as with so many things in Nigeria, we see it on paper, we talk about it, but how do we get these things done? Jeffrey just talked about, in the highest level of the judicial system where a judge had spoken and yet it didn't give a conclusion to it. So what does this tell us? Is it the connection man-no man issue that, these cases are supposed to have ended somewhere lower in court? But do you know who I am? It takes it up to the Supreme Court.
Well, I found myself unable to disagree with eminent Mr. Candido Johnson, who I must say publicly is one of the most upright and well-respected senior advocates we have in terms of his, knowledge, not only knowledge, adherence to ethics. And you see, and if you look up to elements like that as models, then it is very difficult for you to be able to misbehave, whether as a junior lawyer or as a senior lawyer. And I say this because of my deep respect and knowledge of him. But having said that, you must recognize that the reference that you made to the recent Supreme Court judgment is very, illustrative. You must recognize that the Supreme Court, as it is not just a court of law. It plays a tripartite role. It's a court of law, it's a court of equity or justice, and also a policy court. And that role as a policy court is also very significant. For instance, you mentioned this declaration of state of emergency in Rivers, and a plenary objection was raised at the level of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, dismissed the, preliminary objection, and still went ahead to make some comments about what you consider the merits of the case. Those comments were made to guide future conduct of lawyers on such cases, and I don't think it is out of the way for Supreme Court to make such pronouncement. There are certain areas that remains very cloudy in terms of, ambiguous. And then if you look at the Constitution, the way it is made, particularly the provisions on state of emergency, as contained in Section 308 of the Constitution, is too elastic. Those provisions, gives, the president a lot of powers. So I think sometimes you don't blame the judge, like in this case. You blame the Constitution, the way it is worded. Yes, we need to tinker with the Constitution, and make an advocate for greater clarity in the way some of these provisions are couched. in order to forestall some of this controversy and the ambiguity that you have alluded to. And what the Supreme Court did in that case is to say the exercise of presidential powers under a state of emergency is quite extensive. And that is the truth. If you read the Section 3, it's very well.
Extraordinary measures.
Without extraordinary measures.
So the argument,
Yes.
without coming in, so 5 ways the governor can be removed that
Yes.
I know of. His tenure ends, I hope I can remember all of it, he's impeached, he dies, he resigns, and I think a court can remove him, maybe tribunal, those are. And if you go to Section 4, subsection 11, even when a House of Assembly cannot even function, there's a clear-cut statement by this Constitution telling the National Assembly, don't go near the governor and his deputy. So it looks like a closed case as far as how a governor can be removed or made tactically immobilize him to perform his duty. So this was a case where everybody was looking forward to say, let there be a clear pronouncement. Because when Joshua Darie went to court, the argument was to the fact that he doesn't have the local standard because he came in as a suspended governor. Similarly, Fubara couldn't have gone in, he didn't institute the suit. Now his colleagues went and instituted the suit. It's also an issue of local standard. So everybody wanted informal closure, but it looks like that closure now, it's not as clear. Nuances of an obiter dictum in that conversation. They have said, okay, it didn't stop you to remove the governors, neither did he say you can remove the governors. So it depends on the measure of threat in this sense. And that gave room for multiple interpretation, even by lawyers themselves. So my argument is to the fact that if you were not ready to speak clearly on it, why do you speak on it entirely?
Well, I don't think, without holding brief for the Supreme Court, when you say extraordinary measures might also entail suspending certain aspects of the Constitution during the state of emergency. You are talking of a state of emergency. Ordinarily under a state of emergency, rule of law at times may be kept in abeyance in order to deliver on peace and security. We are dealing with extraordinary times. And I think what the Constitution ought to have done is to set out the limits of powers that the president can exercise under a state of emergency, and to say clearly that it does not cover removal of elected governors. But that is not there. And now it now behoves on the Supreme Court to make such a pronouncement. And I think from what the Supreme Court has pronounced, it is clear that a president under the present Constitution can remove an elected governor. And it will not be derogated from the provisions of the Constitution.
Because of the latitude of
Yes.
discretion.
That is why some people have said the advocacy should be for a brand new Constitution. So that we can look at some of these gray areas.
And you know, Mr. Shitu,
yes.
with some of these gray areas, and we are talking of, winning the confidence of the people in the judiciary.
Yes.
I mean, if the experts, the senior advocates, are talking of gray areas, then how do you expect the people to have confidence in the system?
With due respect to you, it has nothing to do with the issue of confidence of the people. You look, you submit a dispute for resolution before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has a duty to make pronouncement based on the letters of the law, and there are certain rules, prescribed rules, that are deployed for constitutional, interpretation. And one of the most fundamental rules is the purposive rule of interpretation. You look at the letters, the issues generally, and they make a pronouncement. I think instead of condemning the Judas, we ought to salute the Supreme Court for rising to the occasion most of the time to stabilize the polity.
Okay.
And that is one of the job, the assignment, entrusted.
There are one or two things I like us to begin to look forward to 2026 because one of the issues that is likely to take the issue. But before we go there, let me ask you, Mr. Candy Johnson, if there is anything you'd like to respond to in all of the issues that have been raised so far. Extraordinary measure is a very large space.
Our political history makes quite clear that the question of state of emergency has been problematic through all the republics. It was the Western region's problem of the Second Republic, all these. It's a matter that was dying for a clear pronouncement by the Supreme Court. I think that it's idle to call a reasoned pronouncement of the Supreme Court an obiter dictum. There is no court in the land that will tell you that an expressed opinion by the Supreme Court on a subject matter is obiter dictum. I don't want to use the street expression. The street expression will be, they haven't born the father of the person. But the fact of the matter is that when the Supreme Court determines that it is going to consider a matter, and other courts do this, this is a matter that is likely to be problematic across politics. We now, whether there's a preliminary objection, whether the issue is viable in this case or not, we're going to make a pronouncement which must guide the profession and the politics and the conduct of this matter. Now, we need judges to be able to interpret the Constitution. This is a fact. The Constitution is written for all time, but it cannot anticipate all things. The United States Constitution was 7 articles, and since then 27 amendments, but this is what has run their country for nearly 300 years. Our Constitution has 600 or 700 sections because the drafters thought that they could contemplate every possible issue, and they were not willing to leave the interpretation in particular matters to the wisdom of the institutions that they had created. That is a problem. But the Supreme Court of Nigeria, I think, was quite right to step into the void, if you like, that exists in this area, this important area of our law, and to make a pronouncement which I would consider has declared the policy of the courts on the question. There is nobody who can contest it. So to say whether they had the right or not a right, the Supreme Court decided to sit in bank, and they decided to pronounce on a problematic legal political issue. They took time to consider and give a decision. I think their decision is unimpeachable. But beyond that, I think that, again, it would be idle for anyone to say that was not the law of the land.
Okay. Well, I like the part that you said that they have not born the father. we'll come to that part. I don't know if okay, so there is an issue that is likely to come to the fore in 2026. The police has, the president has been talking quite frequently about the state of state police system and a number of other things. Now, how it concerns the judiciary, you may kindly show us a pathway. It's something that a guest we hosted said about the issue that state police, the issue of state police goes beyond just recruiting policemen. It includes the entire criminal justice system being reviewed. It includes the fact that the states now have to take responsibility for their judges, for their prisons, pretty much for the entire, spectrum of the criminal justice system in each state. Is that a true picture, or you think we have a structure that can accommodate state police in the judiciary as it is currently formed?
Well, we have state judiciaries, we have federal judiciaries. There's nothing remarkable about apportioning powers and rights to various levels of government, be it executive government. There's going to be a subsidiarity from the federal government to the states, from states to local governments, and in some countries where there are federal systems, it goes down to mayors of cities. Subsidiarity in government is recognized as a desirable principle. The idea that government should be administered at the lowest possible level so it is most effective. Now, as to criminal justice, this, again, is not a remarkable thing. Theft, public urination, sexual offenses, these are offenses that are properly within the remit and control of the more subsidiary levels of government as can be appropriate. So the magistrate court, you don't expect the Federal High Court to deal with public urination. So you've divided the legislative and legal responsibilities. You will also assign courts at the different levels to deal with those levels of offenses. There are federal offenses, offenses dealing with currency, offenses dealing with foreign exchange, dealing with defense, with banking and securities. Those are national subject matter. This is not a remarkable thing again. From the creation of our country, there have been debates as to how to assign legislative powers to different levels of government. And this has changed from time to time. From the various constitutions, they decided certain issues should be with states. And state police had originally been a local government matter. In our before independence and thereafter, we did not have a centralized, we had an inspection of police, but the fact is that you had local government police. And that is a practical solution to the problem of crime and punishment, that you should bring its administration to the lowest level where they can identify the local thief and they know exactly who is the local
Unfortunately, Mr. Candy Johnson, that seems not to be the system we have right now. Dr. Shitu, usually sometimes at the end of the day, it's in the execution of some of these issues. Let's imagine for a moment that we now have an active state police system in the country. Mr. Candy Johnson was talking about the First Republic. We had local government, police, so to speak, at the time, and they had their own impact on the polity. Imagine for a moment that we now have a state police system. Do you think the judiciary, as is currently structured, can easily accommodate it without any rancor?
There's no doubt about it that the judiciary can easily fit in. I think the first reality that we must face is that this constitutional framework that we are practicing is a gross deception. Gross deception in the sense that we claim to be operating a federal system of government. A federal system of government. And central to federalism is true fiscal federalism. We don't have a centralized policing in the federal setup. It's an anomaly. I think we must recognize that. You practice this is a unitary system of government that masquerading as a federal setup. In an ideal federal setup, you decentralize powers, including policing powers. You don't have, for instance, under the present, dispensation that we have, the governor of the state is not in full control of the police. He's not in control of the police. That's the reality. The police is answerable. The commissioner of police in Lagos State, for instance, is answerable to the Inspector General of Police in Abuja. In a federal setup, that is clearly an anomaly.
How is that problematic for the judiciary?
It's problematic because, we all know that most of these offenses that we're talking about, they are local. You understand me? If a murder is committed here, in Lagos State, it's the local police that will investigate. It is elements who are familiar with the terrain that could track the perpetrators of such a heinous crime. You don't ask somebody who is from Zamfara to come and police a state in Osun. He doesn't even know the terrain.
But Mr. Shitu,
but there's no way we can even talk about this subject of state policing without a constitutional amendment.
Exactly what I want to say now.
The Constitution does not allow it.
So if everybody is saying that our Constitution needs a tweak or an overhaul, what's stopping Nigerians from saying this Constitution is not representing our interests as much as we want, is a hurdle to a lot of things? Why can't we do something
we are only doing so. Part of this conversation.
We've had a lot of constitutional amendments.
This conversation is also about that.
Mr. Shitu, we've had a lot of constitutional amendment meetings in different states by different administrations. But it seems like once we have the beautiful blueprints and suggestions put together, and it just goes quiet.
I think we are going about it the wrong way, in my view. What we need is not tinkering with the Constitution. We need a brand new Constitution. We need to start afresh. We need to subject a constitutional, framework to a referendum of the Nigerian people. This is lacking now. Were you called upon? Was your consent or your input sought before this Constitution was put in place? So we must agree that what we are operating presently is defective, fundamentally defective.
Let's take it to Mr. Candy Johnson. First, do you agree that we need a brand new constitution? I read a lot about how to go about this. The argument, I think, from one of the senior advocates, your colleague, that said, let's look at Section 4, which gives the National Assembly some level of powers to be able to write a new constitution, take this one out as a draft, and put a proper law and all the technicalities. So first question, and two questions in one because of time. Do you agree we need a brand new constitution, that this piecemeal amendment is not working for us? Second part is another elementary issue we see within lower court, assuming jurisdiction over cases that Supreme Court has clearly pronounced. Classic case. I'm sorry I always bring in politics because that's where the biggest embarrassment of litigations comes from, where the Supreme Court has mentioned that issues around membership and leadership of political parties, don't bring it here, except it has to do with nomination based on Section 8415 of the Electoral Act. But we see lower court assuming jurisdiction, and then you see them forum shopping and giving concurrent judgment from a court of coordinate jurisdiction. So two questions in one, sir.
Okay, well, as to the Constitution, I think that we can certainly benefit from, we would benefit if we had a new constitution which reflected the fundamental values, the ideas, identity of the Nigerian people. And when people talk about constitution, the lawyers talk about it as if it's a legal document. In fact, it is a record of the fundamental social, cultural, and political agreements, including the identity of the people whose territory it governs. So I don't think that anyone can discern from our present constitution in its piecemeal form any consistent idea as to who Nigerians are. And I think that it would benefit from that sort of improvement. But of course, the political task of creating a new constitution is massive. I think perhaps they could do it, but we would first of all need to agree on the fundamental basis of our organization. What do we believe in? Do we believe in the right to life, property? Do we believe in the freedom of association? All these things we take for granted. If those are the basic things, I said earlier, the U.S. Constitution had 7 articles because to unite 13 colonies or more, they only needed to agree the fundamental things about life, about liberty, about the fundamentals of their economic organization. So that is that aspect of the question. I think that our constitution is problematic. It's inconsistent and in many respects incoherent, and it would benefit from drastic improvement, which may include a complete substitution of the constitution. As to the question of judges ruling and assuming jurisdiction on matters where there is a clear judicial Supreme Court decision that they cannot do so. This is judicial misconduct, and it is likely to be the result of corruption. A judge, you must assume a certain level of competence from a judge. And when a judge does something that is patently out of the pale, especially when there's a direct authority to the contrary, then we must start from the assumption that he has intended to pervert and corrupt that process and that decision. And that's how the judicial constitution should view it. If a judge gives a decision directly consistent with the Supreme Court decision, that is misbehavior, and such judge ought to be punished.
I must thank you both, senior advocates. Sorry, if we were to talk about political litigations, we'll stay until tomorrow, but we don't have any more time. I must thank you both for coming. Yomi Kande Johnson, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us virtually. Also, senior advocate, Leonard Sake as well. We're happy to always coming through whenever we call. Thank you. And you look like we're going for a traditional marriage.
It's a good way to start 2026.
And I must just appreciate Mr. Kande Johnson. I learned a lot from him growing up as a lawyer, even in Kano. So I'm happy to share the same podium with him on this occasion.
We're happy to
have you both. It continues to be a pleasure to associate with you.
We're happy to have you both. So thank you so much. Right. Well, we will take a break now, and it's still a continuing conversation around looking back at 2025 and looking forward to what 2026 holds. The next segment, we'll be talking education. The Minister of Education is here with us. We'll be talking to us as to what the policies are they've implemented this year or we should be expecting next year, what they got right, what they got wrong, and what is in between. Just a moment, stay with us.
In 2025, Nigeria's education crisis was no longer just about access. It was about safety, relevance, equity, and trust. Onto security funding, teacher welfare, curriculum reform move together. Education may remain arguably Nigeria's greatest missed opportunity. But because we don't want that to happen, Dr. Tunji Alausai joins us this evening. He's in the studio with us. He's the Minister of Education. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, first of all, let me ask you, a question that, I don't know, quite a number of discomforting happenings, particularly in the education sector with the mass abductions and all of those things. How did that make you feel as someone who administers education in Nigeria?
Thank you. I'll get to that question in a minute. But let me begin with Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu saying that education must work again for every child and not just for some. And again, the directive that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has given us, myself and the Honourable Minister of State for Education, that every single child in this country deserves the highest quality of education that is comparable to anywhere in the world. And that's what we've done with our Nigeria Education Sector Renewal Initiative, targeting and focused on moving Nigeria from a resource-based economy to a knowledge-based economy. Before I'll come back to your question, and I'll come back to my own constituency of education. But I want to talk about what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done in the past 30 months.
We'll definitely
and I'll come back.
To it.
Just give me 1 minute, because I want to put things in perspective here. You started with school safety, which is very dear to our government heart and dear to our heart, myself and the Minister of State. But let's just put things in perspective. 30 months plus, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu campaigned heavily around the country and told Nigerians that I will take difficult decisions. I won't lie to you. I will take decisions based on the future of your child and your grandchildren. And that's what this president has done in the past 30 months. And we've seen significant improvement all across the sectors of our economy. Fuel subsidies gone. We have plentiful supply of PMS in our stations. Foreign exchange liberalization. We've seen expansive economic activity. Inflation is coming down, has been coming down month over month. And we have more extensive infrastructure development across the country. We have more prices of food are coming down. Prices of food, they're coming down as well, and they continue to come down. And Mr. President told the nation that your children will be in school. 2 academic sessions, we have not had any strike in a tertiary institution. These are not by coincidence. These are direct efforts of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And now let me come back to my own terrain, education. Now, about the school children abduction. This should not be happening. When bad people, bad element in a society targets the most vulnerable section of our country, most vulnerable people, children, female, these are bad people, and we have to treat them as terrorists, as bandits. And that's what Mr. President just said. Every single of this group will be treated as terrorists, and they will be dealt with within the rule of a constitutional mandate. And that you've seen renewed effort now in which coordinated security interventions all across the country. You just heard some news just today. How many people have been abducted, have been arrested, ammunition impounded. We now have renewed focus on improving security in the country. And now, when they abducted these children from school, we did the right thing. We closed some of the schools, but within a few weeks, our children are back in school. All those schools have been reopened. And not just when those schools were closed, we continued with giving these kids education. We deployed technology using our online schooling system, using a learning passport, our Ignite system, and an Inspire system. We continue to deliver education to these children, to the states that were affected by the closures and by the closures of schools. So there were no missed opportunities in our children continue to learn. Okay. And beyond that, we also focus on providing psychosocial support and mental health counseling to all these affected schools. We moved very swiftly. This is what Renewed Hope agenda with regards to education is all about.
Well, Dr. Lausa, you started right by saying it shouldn't happen.
Yes.
So it raises questions on the minds of a good number of people saying, look, about 10 years ago, this whole conversation about safe school initiatives began. Is there an update that Nigerians are not aware of about that one?
Yes. I'll give you several updates here. There's a financing safe school initiative that was put together several years ago, with the funds being domiciled at the Federal Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Finance. We've worked closely with them. We at the Federal Ministry of Education, we've worked closely with them. And things happen, but for 20-something months, there were no abductions in any of our schools. But please, let's just face the facts here. What happened in the past few weeks? There's some political intonation to it. There were coordinated attacks on the sanctity of our country. They want to embarrass this government. But people don't know President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. One thing the president detests the most is blackmail. The president took charge, and you've seen the significant improvement that has happened within the last 2 weeks. And I'll tell you, this will be sustained now and into the future.
So you're assuring us now from the president, from the ministry, we can be assured that as we enter into 2026, we shouldn't hear such things anymore.
I'll give that assurance, but within the ambit of our collaboration within the security architecture of the country. We're working the Department of the Military, the police, the Department of DSS, they're working in tandem. They've been working in tandem. They worked so well, in fairness. Our DSS, they're very good. Their intelligence gathering is very robust. And I can tell you, they knew I was speaking when these things were happening. I was talking to the director, the DG of DSS, almost 4 or 5 times, almost 6 to 10 times a day. They had all the intelligence. But then, in a situation like this, when you have some saboteurs, but they knew everything. And that's very reassuring. All the attacks that happened in Kebbi, they gave the state governor ample time. The governor convened security meetings. They deployed to their schools, to that particular school. Military, police, but only God knows what happened later. So, and the other attacks that came after, and many attacks many more attacks were forward. So the security, the security system is working. They're doing their work, but I can assure you that we will continue to do everything humanly possible to prevent adoption of any of us children from school.
I think it is clearly heartbreaking to see our children being abducted. I don't think anybody wants to see that. But your promise is quite delicate because we're living in trying times. It's on record that this is the biggest abduction in the history of Nigeria. The Papri abduction is bigger than the Chibok abduction because we're talking about 300 children and students abducted in one fell swoop. We're grateful that they are all back. So it's beyond rhetorics, it's beyond, because this intelligence was there, especially in Kebbi, and there were withdrawals for reasons we don't know and we've not had answers to. So the question now is, 2 things. First, what are the strategic things being done to make sure it doesn't happen again? And I can tell you for free, if the federal government wants to do it alone, they will fail. At least we've seen that practically. So what, in collaboration with states, is the federal government going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
We've had intense collaboration with our subnational government, and that's one of the way we've worked. Now, we have the Central Command and Control Center of our Safe School Strategy, domicile at the Nigeria Civil Defense Center, with schools that are connected. We've had a total review of that architecture. What we're now doing is that we're moving all schools in the country onto that platform. They're being geofenced onto that platform so that we know what's happening in every of those schools. We have the command and control centers already, and we've also now collaborating more with the subnational government. We've reactivated the police. I've just written a letter to the Inspector General to give us the names of the police in charge of their safe school initiative in each of the states, in each of the local government. We'll plug that onto a big database that we're building now. We're rebuilding the database, and we now have robust technology to ensure that we have better monitoring processes in place. So with that, this was a wake-up call, but I'm glad all those children are back, and they will be back in school when school reopens around January 6th. But we've really rejigged the technology platform that we're using. And as I told you, we're moving all those schools. We won't wait for the school. Previously, we're waiting for schools to reach out to us and enroll. But what we're doing is that we have the data of all public schools, private schools. We're moving them onto our platform now, all geotagged and with monitoring devices. And we also have the space, Nigerian Space Research and Development Agency, that we can look at all these schools in space.
For context, Minister, are you saying that with a dashboard, the federal government can see every school?
Yes.
Is that the explanation you're giving?
That's what I'm saying.
So that we
now.
Contextualize your references.
Yes.
We don't be quoting you.
Yes, we can see, we have all this data already, but we're now aggregating and putting it on a centralized data dashboard that we can see and we can monitor.
That's very impressive, Honorable Minister. I have to say that. You know, I know that the only that I know agency now is the NNPC, where they, you know, monitor oil theft and all of that. And if you go to their control room, you see that. So that's really impressive, and we really do hope, you know, that it will be effective, you know, and have the impact. But you know, safety, of course, is number one. The other thing is cost. Now, when we look at the data of the multidimensionally poor in Nigeria, we saw that it increased this year. One of the things that led to that increase is education. And that's because it does seem like it's now a norm for parents to think of private school, from the nursery to the primary to the secondary. It will really take off a lot of burden from parents and reduce the number of those who are going into the poverty bracket. If we can have public schools that parents can actually trust their children with, do you have that? I know you're very active, and we see you in the news. We see and hear that every time. But do you have that as your focus so that more parents can have more trust in the quality of education in the public sector, and that will reduce their cost of living? Yeah,
that's changing, though, and that's changing very quickly. That's what I told you. There are 6 high priority areas, and I'll quickly go through it so I can zero into your question. Number 6, number 1, our expansive agenda to technical and vocational education and training. Science and technology. Number 2, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medical sciences. Number 3, data and digitalization. Number 4, quality assurance. The quality assurance, the kind of education we give our children, and the quality of teachers that are teaching our children. And number 5, our expansive agenda to really focus, get more girls in school, girl child education, and reducing, number 6, reducing our marginal and out of school children. Now, to say, what are we doing in improving quality of education where parents will now trust? Now, I'll give you an example. People go to the universities now. More students are leaving private school to come to public universities, and we'll fix that one.
Not because it's too expensive.
Not because it's too expensive.
Because they don't have a choice.
Not because they don't have a choice. They were going to private school before. Now
that's what I'm saying. Maybe because it's become so expensive, they're just taking an alternative.
No, not that. We fix the student closure. Universities, tertiary institutions are open now, 2 consecutive academic sections, and we will keep them open. This is what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised Nigerians. Strike will be all over. Strike will be gone. Informal public school, and that's gone forever. We're doing the right thing to address our academic and non-academic staff issue. Now, let me call these are things we inherited, but then, like what President said, he canvassed for this job. It takes all the assets and liabilities, and that's what we're doing. Now, we haven't funded our foundational education well, primary, junior secondary school, and secondary school. But we now have a renewed vigor in doing that. Going to UBEC. Our University of Basic Education is collaborating better, more intently, and directionally, and in a more focused manner with our SUBEB, State University of Basic Education. We've rearranged the way their matching grant can be spent. They can spend more money in the rehabbing school, putting wash facility, rehabilitation of our schools, putting wash facility, solar, putting ICTs in school, ICT centers in school. And if you go now, we've rehabilitated over 10,000 primary and junior secondary schools in the last 24 months. We've rebuilt several. We're building new schools. If you follow our AJAR, what we're doing with girl child education, with a $1.2 billion World Bank credit, we've moved almost over 1 million girls into school in over 18 states, building new classrooms, building new schools. You just saw me visited Borno State Borno State recently, just a few weeks ago. Look at the kind of school we built, the Governor Zulum built, and that's the kind of school we're building all over these 18 states. And
how many
beyond
have you
that,
built so far?
oh, I can tell you
states? So
in 18 states.
Okay.
18 states, but we've
18
expanded.
states is the target, or you've already built in 18 states?
We've built, let me tell you the way they started. We started with 7, those are the 7 original states. We added 11 more states. The 7 states, we've built so many, and we rehab thousands of schools. We're building brand new and rehabilitating thousands of schools as well. The 11 states have started rehabilitations, and we're building more. The 3 additional states haven't started anything yet. We've just gotten their financing together. Just the final approval is just been granted a few weeks ago. So we're very decisive. We're very directional in the way we're focusing at the base level, at the foundational education. And more so, it's not about putting infrastructures in place alone. We're also retraining our teachers. What we've now done with retraining our teachers, we've moved their training, their professional development digitally. They now just go online, get their teacher professional development done, and we pay them. After they've completed one module, they will take short quizzes. Once they pass, we will pay them, we will incentivize them for doing that. And also, we're also focusing on improving their welfare, acknowledging their efforts, and better coordination with at the federal ministry and the state level. We're deploying resources to them in terms of capacity building.
Do the resources also include, if you say you're doing a digital, we know internet access is a major one, electricity is a major one in Nigeria.
Very good. And these are processes that have been all taught to. We're using zero-rated data. We're piloting about 7 states now. With Airtel, the teachers will get the data for free. And what we're going to be deploying in the new year is what's called ISP, Internet Exchange Point. We're building our own Federal Ministry of Education center where this teacher, all these EdTech things will be loaded there. All this TPD content, digital content will be loaded. Teachers will just log in for free. And that's even delivering online classes from primary 1 to primary 6, JSS 1 to JSS 3, and SS 1 to SS 3. Live lessons are being delivered now, and these are all to zero-rated data. Nobody will be paying, give me one second, they won't be paying anything, it will be free. And what also we're doing, we've deployed smart boards to several of our primary schools, junior secondary schools, and senior secondary schools as well. We're using technology, we're using AI as well to enhance the quality of education we're giving our children. I'll tell you, this government doesn't joke with education. Well, education is the bedrock. Yeah. Give me one second. Education is the bedrock of any society, and that's what we're doing. We will move our country from resource-based to a knowledge-based economy. And we're very lucky as Nigerians. It's in our DNA. We're smart people. So all we now need to do is to give our citizens the opportunity, the access to get quality education. Please.
Now that you mentioned all this, wherever I go, whichever states I go to now, I'm going to pay attention to all the things you've claimed to see how well it's been put together. But where I'm going to, before my colleague Ayo comes in, because they sound very great. And they sound quite futuristic, but I'm talking about...
I'm telling you, it's not futuristic. These are things happening now. Please, yes. You can go fact check me. So they're happening now. They're not futuristic.
You talked about costs. I know that your spending limit year on year, last year was about 3.2.
Last year they had good budgets.
No, 3.2.
Yeah, 3.5. That was one of the highest.
That's 6.4.
Yes. Yeah, they had a good budget.
Yes. So 6.4 trillion. I don't like to run with how much was earmarked. I'm always interested in how much releases were made. So how much releases were made, and how can you tell us how that was appropriated?
Okay, thank you. We're very kind. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu believes fervently and benevolently in education and also human capital development, education, health, social protection, in addition to the other things he's doing on other sectors of the economy. Year over year, last year we got a 2024-5, we had the third highest budgetary allocation of all the various MDAs. But then, In the last 2 years, we've had the highest budgetary allocation to education ever in the history of our country. Now, are we using those funds? I'll tell you, TED Fund is there. What we've done this 2025, all the direct intervention for all the tertiary institutions, we mandated them to use those funds on five things. Not to build new buildings, not to build Senate building. They should build, rehab student hostels, rehab classrooms, engineering workshops, lecture theaters, and faculty offices. And if you go to our tertiary institutions, those are being done right. You'll see a lot of that being done right now. Now, we also dedicated 100 billion naira to rehab 18 medical schools, 3 in each geopolitical zones, so that we can we're doubling admission into medicine, pharmacy, and dentistry. For nursing, we've made great stride. Before we came in as a government, we're only enrolling 28,000 nurses annually. Today, we're enrolling over 150,000 nurses annually. You heard the cries, the woes and cries you heard about Japa. It's all tamed down now. It doesn't happen. That didn't just happen because, it just disappeared. Our strategy was, we have a youthful population, we have people that want to learn, let's create access for them, and let's use a number to saturate the system. That's what we've done with nursing now, and we're going to continue to do that with medicines and other areas, medicine, dentistry, and pharmacy. Now, we've done that, those direct intervention to medical schools. In 2026, what we will be doing, we'll be doing the same thing to our University of Technology. We will spend massively. Each of those federal universities of technology will get about 4 to 6 billion naira to re-upgrade their engineering workshops so that we can deliver modern day training to our students in areas that matters the most.
Talk us through nursery. Now, the reason I'm asking about nursery is, number one, for sustainability. I've taken a look at the Nigeria's education policy a few times, maybe before this government, but each time I look at it, I'm looking for the future. I couldn't find. Now, looking at this, and I'm being honest, I'm wondering, okay, so what are the things in this document that is showing that, okay, we're going somewhere? But this program, talk us through nursery.
Let me talk you through nursery. And this, I'll tell you, let's give credit to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Once everything he does is based on sustainability. Government is a continuum. Now, with the nursery program, I told you, Tibet, just keep this slide on, Tibet. This is just not futuristic. This is what's happening. We started this. President said, I will fund it for you. And he funded it with 5% of TED Fund budget. We had almost 100 billion this year. It's all secured. When we opened the portal, within 10 days, we had to close it. 1.3 million Nigerians applied. We verified those Nigerians. With their BVN, we cross-checked their BVN and their NIN. We have 960 were ascertained. Today, I can gleefully and proudly tell you the first cohort of 250,000 students are being onboarded. Over 100,000 students are being trained in over 1,600 skill training centers across the nation. Those students, there are 4 parts to it. Those students are being paid to go through this relevant trade in areas of fashion and garment making, computer network, GSM computer networking, livestock and animal husbandry, solar photovoltaic installation and maintenance, plumbing, tiling, and electrical work, with other relevant trades. Those students, each student, they've gotten there. You can fact check me. They're getting 22,000 to about 22,500 naira every month, and we're unleashing a different kind of spending into the private sector. Those schools are being paid 45,000 naira per student. So figure out, if you're training 300 students now, if you have a skilled training center that you're training 300 students, you will get about 13 million a month. In a year, that translates to almost 130 million.
That's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of, because we want, and that's the sustainability part of it.
Exactly.
We want to move this out of government. We want private sector. We want this skill training center to have now a lot of money to be able to improve on the infrastructures, buy more engineers, build more functional, modern workshop to train these kids. I've been to these centers. I was very proud. The student, and the way we've done it, we've democratized it. People just went, they applied, and I asked so many of those students, how did you get here? We applied and we're here. It was like magic to them.
So
but these students are being paid, and you can check.
When I asked Honorable Minister about the funding, I'm thinking of the source of the funding for the students you're paying and maintaining those facilities.
And that's why I told the president, happily approved, for going forward, now into eternity, 5% of TED fund will be dedicated to technical vocational education and training.
What's the goal?
The goal is to now, in fact, our first step, successful, phenomenally successful. We've done significant reawakening the interest of Nigerian youth in technical vocational education and training. It was almost fading away from the education system. Now it's back front and center. And these students, they just want the opportunity. Somebody to give them the access. And that's what this President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done. They're going in droves, and people that actually went to universities have been around. People did political science, history, they're back. They're coming to train. And that's the way we want it.
And we have an open market for them.
And let me one more thing. Now, technical education is free. At all our federal technical colleges now, the only thing you need to do as a student, once you get admitted, just go with your clothes. Every single thing is free. You don't pay a dime. And one more second.
Yes.
And all across our federal technical and several state technical colleges, free. And we've spent over 100 billion naira in the last 2 years to rehab, improve on these workshops. So you go to these schools,
where are you?
Where
my colleague Ayo is going with that question, and it's fundamental you give us a clear and measurable answer. What is the gap that was seen? Just hold on. What is the gap that? So, for instance, I'll give you an example. They say if you want the best styling, go to Togo. Those Togolese, is it Togo now? I think one of those francophone countries. I remember. If you want the best style, as at then, I don't know what it is now. Bring those guys into Nigeria. They are aligning. Everything will be perfect. So, question is, what gap in vocational skill are we having? Give us two. And how are you feeling it in terms of critical mass? How many years should we be looking at to say, as far as this is concerned, don't go anywhere else? Nigeria is the destination of choice.
Good. It's something that's so obvious. Before, when you're building your house, the tilers they all came from Togo or Cotonou. The electricians, you get them from somewhere. And more recently, when Mr. Aliko Dangote was opening his refinery, they needed technicians. They couldn't get enough Nigerians. They had to import technicians from India. It's very appalling. As a country of 220 million people, with 70% of that population below the age of 30 years, it's a disaster. Those were the gap we saw, and we knew we had to move quickly. And I can tell you, when we met with the president, the president directed us as part of his campaign promise and bringing technical and vocational education back as part of front and center of our educational system. Go design a program. Whatever amount you need, I'll give you. I'll fund it. That's what we needed. We've gotten all the political will at the highest level in our country. And that's why we've moved quickly. And we did a gap analysis. We didn't just come with these 28 trades. There were trades, about 98 trades across. With gap analysis, we got one of the best consulting firms in the world. We realized that these were the areas of gaps, and those were areas we're training. We're training to meet. Give me 1 second. You asked a very critical question. We're training, not just to train people, to meet the gaps that were identified.
We need numbers. My apologies, Dr. Olausa. We need numbers. And then we need a goal. We need someone to do. He just talked about Togolese. Please, tell me one corner you see in Nigeria now that you don't see one Chinese or the other. And, then we've asked also about how we are decentralizing to the states, because this government will expire. When it does, what's the sustainability plan? We'll come to that when we return from this break. We'll come to it when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Okay.
workaholic son.
Mama.
I wanted to thank you for the solar inverter. In fact, my friends want to say thank you. When you told me about that massive solar savings, they all went to buy their own Sun King solar product. Yes, sir.
I'm glad you like your Sun King solar inverter, but I have one more gift for you. Surprise!
Switch to more precious moments.
My name is Austin Azuko Kocha, but you all call me JJ. That's because I was so unstoppable, they named me twice. During my days as a professional footballer, I played as an attacking midfielder. No one could stop me, not even malaria, when mosquito bites. Now you too can be unstoppable if you use Lonat against malaria.
Lonat, a combination of Artemether and lumefantrine. Lonat, be unstoppable. In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodima's leadership has turned manifestos into reality. Transformations that feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace, and in Imo, it's not left to chance. From land to sky to river deep, guardians are watching, protecting dreams and opportunity. At Orashi's quiet shore, hydropower is rising, set to energize a growing economy. The change is visible. New roads emerge, industry hums, communities come alive. At the center, a digital revolution. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build the future. As Orashi rises, so does Imo and the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
Our end-of-year sales is on. Doors are more than entryways, they are guardians. At Swiss Street Doors, we don't just build doors, we make grand entrances. From the timeless elegance to the unmatched strength of our historical doors, our pivot security doors, our exclusive doors, and our Irish galvanized steel doors, so the water resistance of our internal doors. Don't miss your chance to save big. Come and enjoy our 50% combo discount offer now. Swiss Street Doors, your door, your pride.
The Duchess International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. We take particular care here at the Duchess to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to do very good work for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we have all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Access Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
In this life, it's what you do behind that shows in front.
Now you know. Give us the fire. Tell us more. It's Cosmo or nothing. Luxury or not. This is Cosmo.
That's why I roll with Cosmo deodorant. No sweat, no stains, no odor.
Now you know.
Cosmo Roll-On Whitening Deodorant.
All day freshness, 7 days a week from GVS Cosmetics.
My baba, they always say, for market, every day gets your own wahala. Sometimes people go on scam you. But Baba say, no be by gra. You must cool down, dey sharp. Because with OPay payment, your money go enter sharp, no story. But inside market, anything fit happen. One day, we no see phone again. My baba remember OPay USSD lock, dial *955*131#. Baba press and lock account. From market woman to driver, from small boy to big man. Now OPay, they protect people like us. My papa fit sell, press phone, collect POS, and still they teach me price. And when they don't tire, go just tap OPay night guard. We no fear for this our hustle life. Now OPay be the people payment shield.
What makes a true leader in the game? Is it being the first to start? For over a decade, one name has always led in front. That name is Bet Naija. Bet Builder, Bet Freeze, One-Up, Bet Boom. Not just features, but unbeatable odds on over 300,000 live matches, but playing to win. Just another reason why Bet Naija is truly Nigeria's #1.
Malaria is gone.
What is wrong with my husband?
Ma, he was very sick. This is the lab result.
Thank you, Luta. With Luta, malaria is in big trouble.
Luta contains Artemether and lumefantrine, and it is used to treat malaria.
Luta is another quality product from Ovid and marketed by Pharmatex Nigeria Limited.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Dr. Tunji Alausa is still with us in the studio. He's the Minister of Education. Now, we're talking about, technical and vocational education and all of that. Jeffrey is asking for numbers, and I'm asking for those numbers as well.
Yeah.
But it's all in with the mindset of sustainability. Hitherto, whenever there is an initiative of the federal government, the state governments are just waiting at the bus stop. So let's see how you guys are going to do it.
You've asked 3 questions.
So that if we know, okay, these are the things to look forward to.
Good.
This is the time where we can say Nigeria will no longer be importing these skills.
Good. You've asked 3 very important and very germane questions. Numbers, which I'll give you. How the collaboration with our subnational government and sustainability. Now, with numbers, we're targeting training about 1 million Nigerians in the next 2 to 3 years. And we've started with the first cohort of 250,000 Nigerian youths that we're training. 100,000 of them, of the first cohort, have already started their training. And these are in areas that are really critical trades in the country that we need. Because I told you before, we just didn't do this by just shooting dart in the dark. We did careful labor gap analysis commissioned by one of the best consulting firms in the world. We knew where the gaps were, and we're laser focusing our training to cover those gaps. So numbers, we're targeting 1 million citizens to be trained in these areas in the next 2 to 3 years. We started with the first cohort of 250,000.
How many skills?
In 28 different skills. And I'll tell you, when we did, based on the application, I'll tell you, garment and fashion making was the #1. And it's so interesting, the way things were in the southern part of the country. Garment and fashion making topped the numbers. And on the northern part of the country is livestock and animal husbandry. But the second closest to that was fashion and garment making. The #3 thing was computer repair and GSI networking. #4 was solar photovoltaic installation and maintenance. #5 was plumbing and electrical work. Now we're also we're using a lot of CNG now. We've also added CNG retrofitting and maintenance to it. And these are areas we're training, and in all other areas as well, not limited to these 6. I just told you the top one: air conditioner, refrigeration and air conditioner repair, and all other things. And I haven't even spoken about what we're doing with areas of digital technology academy that will be training people, graduates from our universities, in area of software development methodologies, natural language processing, quantum computing, AI and machine learning, and things like that. We also have a carefully designed training that we're targeting people that are in final year at the universities or graduates that are finished. We'll give them 6 to 8 months training online. We've finalized our contracting with Coursera and Pluralsight to deliver those training that were carefully curated to meet international and global standards. So that those kids, when they're done, they can take any of the certifying exams like AWS, Huawei, Google certification, and they can sit right in Nigeria and service any company anywhere in the world, in Hong Kong, in Singapore.
Is there a plan? Because getting trained and getting the certificate in Nigeria is not the end of the story.
No, this is not planned. These are things that have been worked out. The first set
so I'm asking, sir, after the training, then what?
After the training, we also, as part of the plan, and I'm going to answer that question in 2 ways. Beyond training these people in TVET, the second thing is that we need to get them employed.
Exactly.
We're spending a lot of money. So we built a TVET job mart now, job marketplace, an online platform that we're finalizing the procurement with World Bank, that we're building, where as these trainees are graduating, we're putting them on those portals. Labor recruiters, manufacturers can now go to those
platforms. So like a portal where you connect the
job market platform.
Okay. How do people access that? Because, sometimes when we have dignitaries like you on our shows and you itemize these beautiful ideas, it's news to a lot of Nigerians. How do they even get to know about it?
We're getting all this information out to the public.
How?
I'll tell you, the same way, we have several portals that we get information out to the public. When we start, and we do it in a proactive manner. We just don't wait till that, and we build it up. When we open a TV portal, I told you 1.3 million people applied within 10 days. We had to close down. So we have a way of disseminating the information out. So this job market portal, once we finalize the building, and we do the pilot testing, the beta testing, and other testing, once we open it out, we disseminate the information. And then we also have these captive students already. They're being trained. Those information will be deployed to them. And also, we know the users, the end product users, the manufacturers. We have their data. We're building a database of them, and we deliver this information to them. And now, I just told you about the TVET, the DTA, the Digital Technology Academy. Beyond now, when we train these people, we will pay. Government will pay for their certification. Once you have AWS certification, Google certification, is either intermediate or advanced. You see, your out market today, there are about 2.2 million vacancies worldwide in those areas that I've just mentioned. Software development methodology, proactive security that we call cyber security, natural language processing, quantum computing, AI and machine learning, and about UNESCO data, about 2.2 million vacancies. So once we get these kids well trained, and we're using Coursera, we've gotten instructors from Stanford and everything to help us design, carefully curated to meet the content. That's been done. We're just finalizing deployment.
Do we have any set of graduates yet from any of these programs?
No.
Or when can we expect?
No, the first set of course for the DTA, Digital Technology Academy, will happen in the first quarter of 2026. But people are training on a TVET now. In the next 3 months, we'll have graduates. And by that time, the job market portal will be up. It's not just training them alone. Let me tell you something. This President Bola Ahmed Tinubu told us, this is not everything you do. As my minister, there has to be sustainability behind it. Government is a continuum. And you're talking about the collaborating with the governors. I'm telling you, with this TVET, we are in sync. The schools, the federal technical colleges we rehabilitated. We also rehabilitated several state technical colleges. And I'll tell you, the skill training centers that we're using a lot of the state skill training centers. I can tell you, the other day, the governor of Kebbi State called me and said, I finished these 3 skill training centers. When are you going to put students in? Today, I can tell you, within 3 weeks, we have almost 1,000 students in those 3 training centers in Kebbi. It belongs to the government.
And sustainability beyond this administration, that's also one.
The sustainability, because it's there, the funding is there. I told you 5% of TED fund funding, the structure is there.
It's quite structured financially.
Financially structured and robustly.
It looks very, as I said,
in a robust manner.
It looks very beautiful. We begin to look out for these things that you said.
Please, I need you to.
Yes, because
especially the first set of the graduates.
Yes.
That to be good.
I can give you.
And I know we're going to get channels to get an invitation.
A training center for you to go with your crew and go and listen and go.
We don't mind.
Please,
we need to build from the vocational to maybe teachers and all of that. But if my research is correct, you went to Cardozo High School, right?
Cardozo High School.
Is that your school?
That's not my school.
Are you aware of Cardozo High School?
I'm not aware of Cardozo High School.
Because there are some schools that...
No, I'm not aware of Cardozo High School. No.
I wonder if the structure is coming up in some of the schools because we still see
the reason
some
I was
of those
referencing it
schools,
is because of some of the schools we see,
Yeah.
people sitting on the ground. In fact, there was one we saw. I don't want to call the wrong state, so let me save myself from that trouble.
Yeah.
Literally
People
embarrassing.
Under the tree.
Literally embarrassing. If you see the state of those schools, what is the? I almost want to say federal government, but I don't think federal government should do everything. So in collaboration with the state, what are you doing?
No, those are, like President would say, the federal government doesn't have any citizens. The citizens belong to the state, to the state governors, state government. Now that's what we do at federal level is because we have enormous technical resources, not financial per se, technical resources now to help the states, carry them along, and we've done that so well. We've collaborated so well with them. Now, with regards to now building, in fact, before we came, some states were not even assessing their UBEC grant. We had almost 240 billion naira sitting unutilized, matching grants. So what did we do? I met with the governors, I wrote to them, we realigned, we addressed all their issues. Within 7 months, they had assessed almost 160 billion of the 250 billion that was sitting there. And what did they use those funds for? To rehab the school, to build new schools, to put wash facilities, solar facilities, and ICT centers. And it's, you see, these are infrastructure decade that we inherited. But if you go to several, we're rehabbing an agenda for 2025, and a huge chunk of our UBEC funding for 2026 will be spent on schools rehabilitation and upgrades. We're not building.
Yes. I want to, because before we raise and forget them, we'll come back to this primary and secondary. University lecturers, I know that thanks that we've not had strike in a long while. When I did my analytics as to 26 years of since 1999, since the democracy, I think if you accumulate the number of times university has gone on, ASO has gone on strike, maybe over 4 years.
Yes.
200 days, 60 days, when you put it all together, 4 years. That is terrible
that's
by any
full cost.
Yes, that's about 4 years. So we're grateful it's not happening as, but that doesn't mean the issues are over. So I want you to speak to the issue of that 2009 agreement.
Okay.
I want you to speak to issues of their pay.
Okay.
I think we interviewed a lecturer, a professor, I stand to be corrected, whose salary, if I remember, is not up to 500,000 or 600. How can I go to school to that level?
Yeah. Jeffrey,
that is ludicrous.
Jeffrey, I think you're back in time. You're very futuristic, very advanced person. But this, you're very archaic. Let me not tell you.
Let me tell you something. Give us the updates.
I'll give you the update. What you said is very appalling. That our kids will go to universities or polytechnics or colleges of education for a 4-year course or 3-year course, and they'll be there for 6 years. That was one thing this president said, I will not tolerate. I will keep these children in school. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made this commitment. And when this president makes his promises, he doesn't make empty promises. He makes sure that his promises are fulfilled. And that's what we're saying. What you've just seen with schools staying, at tertiary institutions, staying in session for 2 years, it's not coincidence. It's what this president did. President brought forth all his political will to ensure that whatever we can do to keep this academic staff happy, we will. And that's what we've done. We've finalized, I told you today, ASU members are happy. They're happy. I can tell you that.
I have confidence. 2009 agreement. How much are professors
let me tell you something.
Away from what you told me then?
Let me say, give us by the 15th, on the 14th of January, we'll have the official signing of those agreements. The 2009 agreement, we finalize it. Give this president all the credit. Agreement that was entered with ASU for 16 years, not operationalized. Today, I can tell you, I just give you a sneak preview, the academic staff members will get 40% increase on their salary from 2026. It's never happened before. This President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made it happen. And every single component of those agreements, we worked on it, we've agreed on everything, we'll have the official signing on the 14th of January.
So let's do the breaking news. According to the Minister of Education.
I don't want to preempt. That's not preempt.
No, you just said it.
Yeah. January 14, yeah. January 14, we'll sign the agreement, yes. Breaking news, yes.
Yes, breaking news is that in 2026, I don't want to put a time, 40% increase in the salary of all tertiary institution
academic staff.
Academic staff.
I can tell you that's the academic.
Let
me tell you something. We need to thank President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this.
Can I stretch you for that? When will the pay start? When are you going to?
It will be effective from January 1, 2026. That's the effective date.
Okay.
People have worked so hard behind the scene for this.
Okay.
Thank you. All credits goes
to the president.
To president.
Because if it was a knock, it would go to the president.
Yes. No, beyond that, not beyond. Let me tell you something.
Okay.
President was directly involved. He said, bring everything to me. And whenever we went, Mr. President, we want to talk about this, he will create time on the schedule. That's the commitment you need from a president. That's when we know education is the bedrock of any society.
We were made to understand, and please, correct us if we're wrong, that one of the initiatives, one of the reasons for the student loan initiative was to put paid to strikes and all of those things. You may want to speak to that among other things, but still talking about the student loan, what are the numbers saying? It sounds like technical trainings and vocational trainings get more attention because your numbers are saying that there has been 846,463 applications, and as at September 26, 2025, you have a little less than 600,000 students who have so far benefited from the loan scheme.
Okay.
But your numbers also say that the technical, training initiative is getting a lot more traction.
Look, I just want people to see this. These are the promises the president made. And look at his scorecard. 9. The president has delivered on 8 out of those 9. The only one that we haven't really delivered was school feeding, but we finally, because we moved away, and I'm coming to your question, Ayo, we moved away from the old way of doing things, where when government says, I'm doing school feeding, they start buying rice, buying kitchen utensils, employing cooks. It didn't work. Previous government had spent trillions on school feeding. It was a disaster. So what we're doing now is to use technology for school feeding and link that school feeding to improve attendance in school. So we're now going to be paying mothers to make meals for their children. We're building that technology platform. And that's what this president says is the enemy of corruption is technology. If you want to and we're doing it in such a way that it will be sustainable. That's the only way. We haven't started that school feeding.
I don't think I understand what you mean by mothers being paid to make meals.
I'm trying to optimize my time, and I'm coming to the near phone thing. Previously with school feeding program, it was government that cooked.
Yes.
Poor quality food and this and this. So what we've now done is that we will now enroll these students, the ones that have NIN and the ones that don't have, we use biometric on the NIN of their mothers. We model the amount of money per meal. I think it came out to about 400 naira or 450. So if you figure out 20 school days in a month, it will come to about 15,000. So it's a form of conditional cash transfer. First of every month, the mother will get that 15,000. They'll cook nutritious meal that we're designing with Ministry of Health. The kids will bring that cooked meal to school.
Is there somebody checking the children?
Of course, they're bringing the cooked meal to the school. The teacher will check. So, and we also will link it to attendance, that the kids must attend at least 70 percentage. We haven't finalized that. And boom, next month, and the attendance will all be digital. Will be boom, biometric scanning, boom, we know. By 1st day of every month, we know your attendance.
And I guess that will qualify for the next month.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds good.
That's it. And in this, and we've worked with the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. We're collaborating together to do this.
So this is more like clocking in.
Clocking in, yes. And then they will get paid. And guess what? There'll also be collateral benefit. Or even some of the kids that are not in school, the mother can even get some of the part of the meal to give to them. So the way we've designed it will be sustainable. So if you look at these 9 priority areas, we've delivered on 8. If the school feeding, we will deliver within the next year. Now with NEFund, this president said, I will make access. Lack of money should not stop any child from going to school. You've seen kids that passed the exam, got 370 in JAM, wanted to read medicine because of money. They can't go. That's gone forever. This president has worked within the first 6 months of his administration to get the NEFund Act passed. And it's just not passing act. He found money to fund it within the first year. And subsequently now, NEFund is robustly funded. For 2025, President gave us 280 billion for NEFund. Today, I can tell you the most recent data.
Yes, give us
over almost 800,000 students are benefiting from NEFund today. We spent, in 2025 alone, we spent more than 20 billion. So for students out there, access should never be an issue. So fund to go to school should never be an issue. You just apply, you apply digitally, you get your, we're linked to all the tertiary institutions, you get your approval, and then you get your money. You get, and let me tell you again, we're paying the entire fee, and we structured NEFund, now the payment. We sat with all the vice chancellors, the rectors of polytechnics and provosts. We said, when President said, I'll give loan to fund your school, we don't want any hidden fee. Before, in the first year, students were being made to pay faculty fees and everything. We rolled up every single fee, even for their field visit. We rolled it into that fee that NEFund will pay. So today, if you're a beneficiary of NEFund, you're not meant to pay anything, zero.
And I know that.
And then we're also giving you monthly stipend.
I know there was also the talks of, because the government has intervened, some school fees being hiked. I know that was a conversation at the time.
When the outcry came, we sat down. We all sat down with all the head of institutions, with MD of NEFund, amazing human being. We all sat down. We fixed the problem. So we standardized the problem. We fixed the problem and we standardized the entire process. And what we've also done is that we're working on finalizing cost of living. And so based on the areas in which universities are located. Obviously, University of Lagos, there's some more cost because of the urban area compared to a university in the further part of the part of the country.
I know that 846,463. They are potential.
That was September data. Yes. Current data, almost 780,000 students are benefiting.
Okay, these are potential debtors to the government in the next 5 to 10 years.
No. Let me tell you something. But what the government said is that you will not pay back until you have a job.
We're saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing. They are potential debtors. They are owing government.
Go to school
in the long run.
No, don't worry about it. Go to school first. Become a lawyer first. Become a doctor first. Become a engineer first.
No problem.
And then figure out what you're going to deal with. This is. This is
one initiative.
If you went to school in the US now,
this is one initiative
for medical school,
this is one initiative.
At the end of the day, you're done. Yes. In medical, you'll be on the hook for almost $650,000 US.
I think this is one thing that is everybody, literally, even opposition, perhaps has commended government for. Yes. Although some people are pushing for entire grants, not a loan, but for sustainability, perhaps it's maybe tomorrow it will be grant. But maybe as we begin to coast home. If we sit here with you on December 31st,
yes,
2026, if we can catch you, because all of you will be all over the place trying to campaign, what should we be expecting from the Minister of Education to say, we made this promise, and today is December 31st, 2026. That's futuristic now. This is what we've done.
To building on what we've done, it has to be accretive. A TVET agenda will continue, would have enrolled more students, would have trained more students, more citizens, they will have gainful employment, we would have significant reduction of people coming from out of the country to come and service our our manufacturers here. Manufacturers will be happy that they have skilled manpower to support. More will continue to open more access to students that want to go to tertiary institution. Would have done by end of next year. Would have significant infrastructure improvement at the foundational education level, at primary school, at junior secondary school. We've also trained 1 million teachers. We're focusing heavily on teacher training as well. As part of what we're doing, we've moved. What I haven't even spoken to you about is about Nigeria education data infrastructure. We've moved all our annual school census digitally. The first in this year, the 2026, those data will be collected digitally. It's never happened before in the history of this country. Any governor can sit at his office. I know the number of primary schools in the state. Die down to the ward, to the senatorial district, to the ward, and to that school. It will know the number of students, male, female, if they have adequate classrooms, if they have enough watch facilities, if they have an ICT centers. We've built that technology platform now. We have 21 states
all right,
loaded
Minister,
already.
because we're almost out of time, but
yes.
I really need for you to help explain this integrating of the junior and senior secondary. What's that about? What are we looking forward to?
We're not integrating it still. We have what we're trying to do is to make we've passed the policy at the National Council of Education. We're now moving from 9 years of continuous education to 12 years of continuing education. So we now have, rather than now saying, okay, the government says 9 years of continuous free education, but there's no way we can't just change it by fiat, that 12 years of continuous free education. So we've now said 12 years of continuous education. We're removing the transition, the problem from transiting from junior secondary to senior secondary school, because that's a global standard. How well can you educate? How much education could you give somebody for 9 years? So we're moving to 12 years of continuous education.
It still needs to be JSS1, JSS2,
JSS1,
and SS1 and SS3.
Yes.
Oh.
So there's still three. On the foundational school level and the secondary, you have 6 years of primary school, 3 years of junior secondary schooling, and 3 years of senior secondary schooling.
All right, Honorable Minister, we really have to thank you so much for your time. We covered a whole lot of ground right there. We really appreciate.
I'm looking forward to not having children kidnapped
They won't be
again.
Yeah,
It's
all covered now, according to the minister.
Salaries of
it's all covered.
It's all covered.
Don't worry,
academic
Jeffrey.
students,
Don't worry,
academic
Jeffrey.
staff increased by 40%.
Yeah,
Don't worry, Jeffrey.
I don't want to hold you.
It's all covered.
I'm just reminding you what
You have a proactive president. You have a proactive president that doesn't joke with education.
This time next year, God's grace, and he's going to come with his slides and ticking all of those boxes. I mean, let's have faith. Let's have faith. But thank you so much, Honorable Minister.
These are things that are, it's not about having faith. These are faith.
These
are things
this
that
is
are happening
reality
already.
Okay, all right.
Go to these schools and fact check us.
All right, Honorable Minister Lausa, thank you so much for your time and the work you're doing. And we certainly would hope that we will have you back here, God keeping us alive and well, this time next year.
Thank you, and wishing you the best in the new year.
Happy New Year in advance.
Happy New Year.
All right, sure. So let's take a break now. When we come back, the minister was talking about youth. We'll hear their voices and what they know about some of these things. And of course, those already in businesses, how are they doing? The ease of doing business, the environment, and all of that. That's our next conversation. Please stay with us.
To visit Nigeria. Now, that trip, if it had happened, would have signaled a total restoration of diplomatic ties between both countries. Now, although it didn't happen, many Nigerians say 2025 has been a better year all around.
Things are getting much better for Nigerians in the UAE. Like with the visa issues, things are a lot more lenient. A lot more people who didn't have, visas previously are now able to get visas. They're able to get jobs, especially the ladies. And if you work in the education sector like I do, things are a lot more lenient, and we're grateful for that.
The engagement of government to UAE is much better. I've seen the president come in twice. I want to understand the fact that there's a way forward. Emirates starting flights is another good thing that happened.
I can speak for myself and also for those who are close to me in terms of people are still changing jobs, people are getting new opportunities, and it's been awesome.
Following in the footsteps of President Tinubu, Nigerian ministers in charge of youth, as well as art, culture and tourism, have in separate engagements secured strategic partnerships to boost Nigeria's economy. While UAE's digital school is expected to support the Nigerian Youth Academy, Minister of Art, Culture, Tourism and Creative Economy, Hannatu Musa Musawa, says UAE investors will partner on 3 projects: Cocoa Beach Resort in Lagos, a cultural center in Abuja, and the planned establishment of a Rotana Hotel in either Abuja or Lagos. Meanwhile, UAE's ambassador to Nigeria has also pledged support for Nigeria's war on drug trafficking. But Nigeria is yet to have its own ambassador in the UAE, which critics have pointed out.
There's been a gap ever since we don't have an ambassador for more than 2 years now, and I personally believe that one, we have an ambassador, and a good one at that understand the job and is ready to work. There will be a great difference between what we have currently and what the ambassador will bring on board.
With the steps made already in 2025, Nigerians in the UAE look forward to a more exciting and more positive new year. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Maya Wadegoke for Channels Television News.
You're welcome back. It's time to talk to the youth now. We had the minister refer a whole lot to the youth and those programs meant for them. So let's get their own perception and reaction to some of those. So even though we cannot get all the youth in Nigeria to talk, I believe that we have not representative right here. We have the special advisor on job creation and MSMEs to the president. He's a youth also and likes to speak for the youth and interact a whole lot with them. Joining us from our Abuja studio is Temitola Adekunle Johnson. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and another youth joining us virtually is from Yaga Africa. Ibrahim Farouk is Africa Program Coordinator, joins us virtually. Ibrahim, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let me start with you, Ibrahim. I wonder if you heard a bit of what the minister was saying. Beautiful ideas and action, he told us, going on around the country. For you as a youth, how much impact would you say this administration has had on the youth, on their jobs, their careers, their education?
Thank you. I know you keep on calling me a youth. Maybe you should call me a young person, because
young person,
if we look at Nigeria's youth policy,
I
think I'll be past the age of 29.
Okay.
But that is fine. I was able to catch some of the remarks by the Honorable Minister of Education, and especially when he spoke about the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund. And I think when we look back at the year 2025 and some of the programs of the current administration that have affected young people, and especially a mass of young people that we have in tertiary institutions around the country, NEL Fund is one of those programs that has impacted young people. And we saw from his presentation that over 800,000 young people have applied and over 500,000 are beneficiaries. But from your report, we can see that there are some other programs, especially domiciled in the Ministry of Youth Development, that need as much push, as much awareness around them. When you talk about the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, for instance, and there have been allocations of billions of naira for young people with business ideas to invest, as well as the Nigerian Youth Academy. And we could also see in your report where the Minister for Youth Development was also signing some memorandum of understanding in the UAE with another minister, with his counterpart minister, but very little information is out there about some of these initiatives that young people can enjoy, apart from the NEL Fund, which I think has become a flagship program for this administration, especially when it comes to talking about young people. I think President Tinubu also mentioned it in his address to the nation on October 1st, where he was referencing some of the initiatives that young people have been able to enjoy so far, and he mentioned NEL Fund very clearly, but was silent about some of these other programs and policies which really have not taken off from the ground. I know we also have the 3MTT, the 3 Million Technical Talents program as well, even though that is not domiciled under the Ministry of Youth Development. We know that it is largely targeted at young people, providing them with technical skills so that they can also be empowered.
All right, thank you so much. But let me come to Temitola. I know you are in government, so most likely we're going to get a lot of positives from you. But I know in my former interactions with you, you are also very conscious of the youth and passionate about entrepreneurs. How impactful would you say your office or this administration has been to youths who are interested in doing business when you look at the business environment in the country?
Thank you. Thank you once again. At the inception of this government, we launched a few schemes. There were some schemes that were launched under the past administration, President Buhari's administration. A few of them were modified by President Bola Tinubu. One of those schemes is the National MSME Clinics, which is now the expanded MSME Clinics. The modification came in the sense that he wanted it to be all-encompassing. For instance, he wanted an aspect where there was a grant aspect to these loans, to the scheme. So when you go into a state, you assemble 5,000, sometimes 7,000 MSMEs in the states for exhibition and discussions on how to move their businesses forward. We wanted an aspect where the outstanding ones would get some grants from federal government. So we introduced these 250,000 naira grants for outstanding businesses. So that would be is a 100% grant. We would not need to pay anybody, repay that fund. Now, what we have realized and noticed is that majority of the outstanding beneficiaries are youths, and when I say youths, mostly ladies as well. So not just the fact that they are youths, and they are female that win that qualified to win this outstanding what you might call it now, grants during the clinics. And as a result of the clinics, we also have built 21 MSME shared facilities. Now, these facilities became necessary as a result of the fact that once we go into different clinics and we engaged MSMEs, a lot of them raised the issue of access to international world-class equipment, that they could not afford those equipment and they needed support from government. So what we did was the federal government will liaise with the states to understand what sort of clusters they wanted support with. And the federal government will, in partnership with our private sector partners and some government agencies, bring in this equipment, sometimes to the tune of maybe like 200 to 300 different equipments in a state, in a facility where SMEs will be able to use that facility from 9 o'clock every day till about 5 o'clock in most states. Usually Monday to Friday in most states. Some states have started operating on Saturdays as well. But these are intended to support the youthful population in business as well. And you'll notice that out of the 21 facilities so far, 21 to 23 facilities so far, about 70-80% of them are youth-centric. They are youth-centric in the sense that you have ICT, you have fashion, which is 80% female. You have ICT, you have fashion, you have, now we have introduced Mechanic City. In 2026, the plan, within the first quarter, the plan is to go full blast with makeup artists and those cosmetics and those that tie gele and all those works, you know, because statistics and data has shown that there's a lot of money being made from just being able to use your hands positively. I've said this over and over again. There was a time I sat down. In short, this December, my wife was going for a party. She and a few friends and cousins were just around they were just setting up, and somebody painted their faces. And the woman collected 75,000 naira from each of them. That lady did not spend 2 hours. And she told them that she had extra 30 minutes for them because she was moving to the next location. That was on a Saturday. So I engaged this young lady to say, how fruitful, how productive is this thing? How profitable is it? And she told me that she's a banker. Banking is a regular job, but weekends, this is what... And she told me in confidence that on a very good month, she makes at least 10 million naira just doing that. So as a government, we are trying to speak to stakeholders in that space as well to see how we can shape in and support that space.
Okay, I think it's about time I also...
Amongst other spaces.
If you can hear me, Mr. Adekunle Johnson, I think it's about time I also try to go back to my fine arts, you know.
You think making up is just about fine arts?
I mean, you really can't tell. But, you know, staying with you for a bit before I go back to our other guy talking about governance. I'll ask you a question that we took time to ask the Honorable Minister. Collaboration. I've always held the view that the states have indigenes. We can say we are citizens of Nigeria, but we are indigenes of various states. Now, the federal government can come up with all of the initiatives and everything, but whatever the initiatives are from the federal government, it is in the states where the rubber meets the road. So what's it like at that level? And if you can give us an example of a particular sector where there is an interface between the federal government, your office in the presidency, and the state governments about how we drill down MSMEs, job creation and all, to the young and all sorts of other people needing such services in the various states.
Ayo, thank you very much for that question. I get asked that question a lot. And I must say, maybe we are lucky within this space because we've had very positive collaborations with the state governments. The MSME clinics I've been speaking about is an initiative of the federal government. But when we go into the states, it is the states that execute it. We just give them the templates and we guide them. They execute it the event. During the event, we collaborate together, and after the event, there's a follow-up. There's a follow-up mechanism, which I'm a part of as well. And all the facilities, there's no facility that we have put in a place, no shared facility that we have put in a place that was not in consultation with the state government. You know, what we were able to do, or what we have been able to do within these spaces, we had written to the state government, gone to them, and showed them the sort of value they will get from getting these things done. And it's a no-brainer that if you're a governor and you support the MSME ecosystem, I mean, you'll be seen to be doing well for yourself. So most of the schemes that we have done, we've got, at least if we have, now the MSME clinics, we have done 10 states. Facilities, the president has asked the VP to commission close to about 11 now. As we speak, we have about 10 on commission. By January, we are going to start commissioning facilities with the state government. Another area where they have cooperated with us was the issue of de-risking. Access to funding is a major issue for SMEs. It's been a major issue for many years. Now, what we've done, like you said, everybody will say we're a citizen of Nigeria, but they are indigenous. So the MSMEs are domiciled in states. So when people just look at the federal government, what are they doing in this place? What are they doing in that place? Don't forget that they are the subnationals.
Okay.
So
well, before I take,
I'd
like to ask Mr. Farouk about communication, but before I go to him, how we communicate these initiatives. But before I go to him, let me cite one example, one instance that I'd like you to speak to quite sufficiently, and that is agriculture, for instance. One of the thoughts in the hearts and minds of many was that, okay, the federal government said they're going to set up some, say, 500,000 hectares of land for farming and all of those things. The concern was that of off-taking. Small farmers or smallholder farmers, as they call them, I don't know what capacity, they have to scale up and all of that. So what's the arrangement, for instance, with state governments in that regard? How many people are being targeted? Let's speak to agriculture alone, in the entire agricultural value chain. How many people are being targeted? What are the successes we have been able to achieve in this year? And then we can talk about promises.
Okay, so with regards to this, I'm going to speak skeletally on what I know. And I assure you that the Minister of Agriculture will speak in depth into it. I'm aware that there are discussions ongoing so the thing is that when it comes to giving up land, mass hectare of land for some of these schemes, it takes time between the collaboration or cooperation takes time from between the federal government and the state government. But I'm aware that these discussions they are ongoing. They are even past stages of discussions, and I think they are within the implementation frame now. And I want to believe that by January, the entire country will start hearing some good things within that space. I know, for instance, that the Niger State Governor is about to kickstart his own partnership with the federal government. I know the Jigawa State Governor as well. They've gone very far into their own discussions, and I'm aware that Governor Zulum has also gone very far with ease as well. But like I said, I'll just speak skeletally into this. And when you asked me, you were saying that to give you just one state of how well our collaborations have gone. If you don't mind, I can give you 5. If you wanted me to give you, I could give you 21. But because of time, I can give you just 5 very quickly. We have collaborated successfully end-to-end in terms of the entire value chain. For MSME, for de-risking fund, for facilities with states like Katsina. Don't forget that the governor of Katsina was the former DG, Director General of SMEDAN. So this MSME business, he understands it very, very quickly. And that's why he has replicated most of the things we do in the federal, in his states. We have collaborated successfully with the governor of Imo State, Governor Hope Uzodinma. We have collaborated successfully with the governor of Enugu State, with the governors of Borno, with the governor of Ekiti State, the governor of Lagos State. Basically, we have Cross River. We have collaborated. We see, as we speak, I can say we have collaborated with at least 21 states.
All right, Mr.
And
Johnson,
the others,
if I may come in.
we have
Yes.
positive response from them.
Yes.
On the fact that they also would like to collaborate as well. So is it that we are lucky or we're doing something that the states like within this SME space?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, and I'll stay with business and the SMEs, which is your own expertise, and probe further, because sometimes this thing look great on paper. Implementation is a different kettle of fish when you probe even further. But let me take it to Ibrahim, whose focus is mainly about governance, election management, and such things. Ibrahim, let's talk about an outlook, because the whole idea is to review the year and look at next year. That's the whole idea of this program. So, looking back at 2025, you and I were in the mother city in Cape Town, and one of the things we saw was the aggregation of the Global South in terms of social movement, trying to hold on to their own to make sure that, look, democracy is preserved as much as possible. All of these things we are talking about, it has to run through an ideology within the political system, else it's going to fail or it's going to be counterproductive. For us now, we run the ideology of democracy. So if you look at 2025, as a person, from your organization point of view, how did the young people, in terms of inclusion, how did they fare? And what are you looking at now? There's an election coming up in 2027. We're almost saying 2026 because the politicians have started from the last election already. How do you think they are going to fare in terms of inclusion and participation? Because it beats my imagination sometimes that Africa is a population of young persons, including Nigeria, but with a greater sense of respect. We're obsessed with old leadership.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. I think maybe just to start these remarks, especially around youth participation in governance in the year under review, is to cast our minds back to the speech the president made on October 1st, 2024, where he announced that there would be a national youth conference, basically a replication of the 2014 national conference, but this was going to be a youth conference, not a national conference, to bring young people from across the country representing diverse interests, to have conversations about governance issues and issues that are affecting young people. We are currently at the end of 2025, and remember that I said this was a pronouncement that the president made in his Independence Day broadcast in 2024. So October 1st, 2025 made it 1 year since that pronouncement was made. And we still haven't seen the actualization of that youth conference. So I think that just speaks to the level of this current administration's interest when it comes to hearing from young people around governance issues and what they believe our democracy ought to deliver, or what some people would call the dividends of democracy, even though political scientists might not agree with that term. But like you mentioned, a few weeks ago, we were in Cape Town together with other youth organizations and social movements to discuss what democracy means to them and governance in their countries. And we've seen many examples. We heard especially from Gen Z movements from across the global south, for instance. But we also have Gen Zs in Nigeria, for instance, who started a campaign called a New INEC campaign, who are working to influence some electoral reforms, especially around the appointment of the chairperson of the Independent National Electoral Commission. But still, very little progress was made when you look at the response from the government to young people and some of the demands that they made. And some of these demands were as simple as requesting for a town hall where young Nigerians are able to speak directly to elected officials or appointed officials, or those who are able to make decisions for young people when it comes to governance. But like you know, by the time we cross into the new year, and by God's grace in a few hours, it's already 2026 and it's an election year. By the end of the year, political parties would have started primaries ahead of the elections in 2027. So I think it's also crucial that inclusion for young people is at the front burner when we're discussing electoral reform or constitutional amendment issues. I know organizations like YAG Africa are going to host boot camps that will bring together young people who are interested in running for office, especially legislative offices such as the State Houses of Assembly or the House of Representatives. But we need to see equally commitment from the federal government and from the subnational governments in a non-partisan way that benefits the interests of all young people, promoting inclusion, representation, and participation for young people in governance spaces.
Let me come to you, Mr. Johnson. So let's talk your business now. And that has to do with, I know we've spoken to, I think, Muda Yusuf, Bismarck Rwanda, and some of these experts in the economic space. And the data clearly shows that MSMEs are the biggest driver of the economy. Of course, the big levers are the corporations. But the tax laws, the remaining two, that's a tax administration and the other tax act, comes into effect in a matter of hours. And one of the biggest confusion is coming from the understanding of MSMEs, that word could be mouthful, to how the tax will affect them one way or the other. So from where you sit as an advisor to the president in that sector, what are you doing to make sure that these people are properly educated and they make the most in terms of gains? Because now let's talk future. That future is in ours, as far as the tax laws are concerned.
Geoffrey, thank you very much. This question you have asked is very pertinent. It is very important to allay the fears of MSMEs across the country, because some of them have been misled. Some of them have, whether deliberately or unknowingly, some of them have been or are under the impression that the taxman is actually coming for everything they make. And that is not the case. There are aspects of the law, the new tax law that comes into the new tax law that has been passed, that will be kicked, it comes into law by midnight. There are aspects of that law that favors the MSMEs, but we need to find a way to constantly sensitize them. We plan from our own office. We plan to have. We plan to begin rigorous. It's not like we are just starting. There have been sensitization. The FRS itself began robust sensitization of MSMEs across local government, wards, states, some time ago. But we will also join them in doing that from January. We'll go around, based on the data we have, we'll go around sensitizing those that sensitize. You sensitize the sensitizer so that people do not mislead people. So those that pass the information down, we also have to give them the right information. So once they are passing the information down, we ensure that the right information cascades down. So that people do not give half information, because half information is even worse than, you see, it is better not to give out an information than to give a half information, an incorrect one. So we will need to, these MSMEs, their affairs have to be allayed. They need to understand that the taxman is not coming from their front. In short, if you do not make up to a certain amount, you are covered. You might not be required to pay tax in a certain regard. So we need to go deep dive language. If we need to break this thing down into their different languages, Pidgin English, and ensure that everybody is on the same page, at least with regards the new tax, that people are aware of what is coming. People know what is going to be in favor of them, and people also know that whilst there are aspects that cover them, but people should also be aware of the tax bill, what it talks about, what it is about. So if somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, you need to pay XYZ tax," you can challenge them and say, "The tax law says XYZ." So we have our work cut out for us in January from our own bit, but with regards to FRS, they started this bit as far back as almost, I think, 6 months ago, or whenever the bill was passed, they started this sensitization since. But we are going to join the train to support in January.
All right, Mr. Johnson, I'm glad you talked about, you're going to sensitize the MSMEs and all of that, because I also heard something about MSME census. Because, of course, that would also help you to understand where and how this sensitization should take place and how it should take place. And also, I guess the conversation on raw materials and area of specialization or comparative advantage also comes into place. But I'm curious about this MSME census. If that's going to hold, what does it look like? What's the target? What do we hope to get from it? Apart from, it serves the purpose of also helping you to sensitize them about the new tax law.
Well, thank you. The primary aim of census, whether it be SME or even population census, is so that you know exactly who is in the pool, so that you can make arrangements and provision for those in the pool. So what we're trying to do is, the last census says between SMEDA and I think MBS said we have about 39.6 MSMEs. But don't forget that COVID kicked in 2020, 2021. And we can say that if, a few millions of MSMEs fell off. When people say that we lost 5 million MSMEs, I would not say we lost. What I think happened during COVID was that a number of MSMEs, if you recall that during COVID, most businesses were operating virtually. A lot of businesses went digital as well. So what I think happened was that a number of businesses now realize that, hold on, we have been working not too smartly. A lot of them went digital. A lot of them realized that they could do a number of things without being in a physical space, like going to rent a place. So I think that is what happened. Some shops shut down during COVID, but the businesses did not shut down. So they devised other modus operandi of running their businesses. So the sole aim of your direct answer to your question is that the sole aim or the main aim will be to be able to provide, for instance, if government has a scheme, if government wants to reach out to SMEs, and let's say we have about 30 million, let's be sure that we have 30 million. So government can make adequate arrangement and provision for 30 million MSMEs. So we need to be certain what we have as the number of MSMs so that we can make adequate provision for them. Is it that we want to augment the loans that they collect from the banks? If we want to give some form of guarantees, how many MSMs are we giving guarantees for? So we need to know exactly what it is that we're planning for so that we can embody that into our formulation process.
At the heart of that, initiative that you just talked about is the carry along, system, because the MSMEs operate in various industries and they engage in trade and they also invest. Interestingly, we'll be joining us for this conversation, to be part of our conversation, is the Minister in charge of Industry, Trade and Investment when we return. To stay with us.
When we think of Christmas, we remember the laughter, the warmth, the memories made. Now, imagine experiencing all of that in a home that is truly yours. Your first Christmas tree, your first family dinner, your own space filled with love and light. Write your own story this season with Adrian Homes Lemon Friday Plus promo. Enjoy up to 30% discount off land sales. Enjoy easy payment plans and unwrap beautiful Christmas gifts, because this Christmas, this story isn't ours, it's yours. And some gifts never grow old, just like the joy of a home.
and cable. Great quality, now with the new look.
sales is on. Doors are more than entryways, they are guardians. At Swiss Street Doors, we don't just build doors, we make grand entrances. From the timeless elegance to the unmatched strength of our historical doors, our pivot security doors, our exclusive doors, and our Irish galvanized steel doors, to the water resistance of our internal doors, don't miss your chance to save big. Come and enjoy our 50% combo discount offer now. Swiss Street Doors, your door, your pride.
Malaria is gone.
What is wrong with my husband?
Ma, he was very sick. This is a lab result.
Thank you, Luther. With Luther, malaria is in big trouble.
Luther contains Artemether and lumefantrine, and it is used to treat malaria.
Luther is another quality product from Ovid and marketed by Pharmatex Nigeria Limited.
Ferrobin iron and care, be good for your body, yes.
Wake up, feel strong, feel free with Ferrobin. Iron for you and me. Ferrobin is a product of Feedsin Healthcare PLC, available in pharmacies nationwide. Ferrobin, the ideal blood builder.
Welcome to Whitey Bets, your new home for sports betting and thrilling casino games.
It's time to level up your game. Whitey Bet. Bet smart, win big, play with confidence. Incredible odds, non-stop action, fast payouts. And it's all safe, secure, and just a click away. Whitey Bet. Bet smart, win big, play with confidence.
Play now for a chance to win.
Whitey Bet.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with us, but we very quickly want to take on the Minister of State for Industry, joining us virtually as well, Senator John Enoh. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Morning.
Beg your pardon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, God. Presenting a breakfast show can have its issues. Well, now, Honorable Minister, first of all, maybe you want to give us your own outlook. What were your expectations in the year 2025, and what were the challenges that you think may have impeded some of the initiatives you had in mind?
Sorry, can you take that again? Sorry.
Just wanted to find out what your outlook for 2025 were, what were the challenges you encountered in the course of the year, and what are the things that you can say you've been able to achieve?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm happy to join this conversation. It's by January 2025, the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, came up with its outlook. And that outlook was divided into two segments. The first segment on industry, the other segment on trade and investment, according to the two mandates that presently exist in the ministry. And I think that for industry, the outlook had to do with various number of things. One key among these was, the MSME growth. We had, issues that had to do with, various policies. Topmost was, an industrial policy for the country. There were, other things of interest had to do with how much we could advance in terms of resuscitating our, long gone textile, in industry, the automotive sector. There was the issue about the PCP, program for country partnership in terms of our relationship with UNIDO. A number of these things, actually came up for mention. And I think that, one of the greatest challenges had to do with the continuing challenge of funding, it's affordable funding for small businesses, and all of that. The challenge of manufacturing, generally in terms of the various, challenges and constraints, offered by energy, by, a lot of the, the regulatory challenges and all of that. All of these, were some of the things that we have to contend with and we have to do, So about 12 months down the line, I think that, we've done quite substantive, in terms of accomplishments, one by one in each of these things in the various, subsectors, the industrial ecosystem.
Well, you spoke to micro, small, and medium enterprises, and gleefully too. I'll ask you the same question that we've asked a good number of people, today, because many times when we talk about the Federal Republic of Nigeria, many people only take the federal, they take the government, the federal government side of it, without really drilling down to the states. All the industries, all the trading, all the investments happen in the states. So from your own office and from your own ministry, what kind of conversations are you having with states? There's been a proposal years ago about creating economic zones in the nation. It was an initiative by a document that I saw of Leke Alder, coming up with economic zones based on the geopolitical zones in Nigeria. So perhaps that would be some kind of a low-hanging fruit, or what's your collaboration or relationship with concerning how we engage states in this agenda?
Well, it's there's no, I mean, it's common sense that in a country like Nigeria and the way it is structured, that you cannot just remain at the national and not engage with the sub-nationals. So because like you rightly mentioned, all industries, all micro, small, and medium enterprises, are all located in different states and different local governments. So the conversation about collaboration and partnership with states and local governments, continues to be, a continuing matter. I give you some examples. I mean, I've mentioned the fact of the Nigerian industrial policy, and from where I stand and from where I work in putting together that policy, in terms of validation and every process and state that we have to go through. We involve not just states, but local governments through the different platforms like at the local government level, Algon, at the state, the governors forum and all of that, because their contributions and their input remains very, very critical, very, very, important. You mentioned economic zones, and I think that, I may not have mentioned it, when I spoke first, but I think that the issue of special, economic zones as a way of driving industrial growth in our country was also topmost in terms of our outlook. And I think that in the course of 2025, working with the, yes, African Development Bank, and all of that, quite some work has been done. In terms of, we're part of the groundbreaking of the special economic, special agri, processing zone in Kaduna, and that in Calabar and all of that. Even as I speak with you, an ongoing, collaboration and conversation on the, industrial cluster, program, that we're working with the Afrexim, bank, still has to do with that in terms of the various clusters. These clusters are located in states and in local governments. And I think that the way the program, industrial cluster program is fashioned is that in any of these zones, the focus is on products that are uniquely, peculiar to those zones and all of that. So even in terms of the fact that because as a country, I've mentioned that the challenges of infrastructure, the challenges of energy and all of that are such that the best way to drive industrial growth and productivity remains, having to do this in terms of industrial clusters, and all of that. So it's our, inclination or determination or, tendency to work with states and local governments remains quite strong, and all of that in terms of the various partnerships. You would find, and I'm glad that the special advisor to the president on MSME and all is part of this conversation, and that here every now and then, the various, engagements are held in different states, engagements with the different micro and small businesses in different states in terms of the various hubs and all of that. So that is it's important, and I think that we're working on that and making sure. And because what we think is that should be the surest pathway to attaining the kind of industrial growth and economic development that we expect to have as a country.
Yeah, Honourable Minister, and I know that this year, at least, I've met you in different events. You've been really busy talking about industrializing small businesses and talking about the clusters. I believe you're working with SMEDAN on the One Local Government, One Product program. That's one of the programs that you were pushing in 2025. But, you know, it's not new, actually, when we talk about this program, One Local Government, One Product, the 774 local governments you have. So I wonder what progress you have made in 2025 and perhaps the plan to further that in 2026. Because, I mean, coordinating the 774 local government areas and ensuring that they have a particular product or service that stands out could not be easy, but it would certainly give Nigeria a boost when we look at the real sector.
Yeah, you know, the One Local Government, One Product program, I mean, you'll agree with me, is a very ambitious program. You know, while admitting with you that getting that achieved, you know, will be huge, you know, and tremendous in terms of the outcomes for country. You know, but I think that, you know, I spoke earlier on about industrial clusters and industrial parks. You know, I mean, the One Local Government, One Product program is similar to, you know, the call that was made by, you know, some former governors that had served around the same time that our current president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, was governor. I remember watching them on television when they visited the president, and they talked about the fact they recommended that, you know, the government should look at establishing, you know, industries in every local government of the country, you know, and that is almost similar to the One Local Government, One Product thing, you know. But I think that, you know, we're taking this step by step, and the first step towards achieving that is having to, you know, progress and to achieve industrial clusters and industrial parks. It is after this is achieved, then it's going to cascade to the different local governments, you know, and all of that. So it remains work in progress. And I think that there's a lot of emphasis, a lot of attention, you know, in terms of our industrial growth prospects, in terms of, you know, a lot of these things have had to, you know, get as delayed because for a very long time, we've had to, you know, address and respond to our industrial growth and needs in a kind of fragmented manner, you know, in terms of interventions and all of that. You know, for the first time in a long while, we now have a Nigeria industrial policy, which in itself provides us with, you know, a strategic framework, you know, that makes it, it makes everybody to focus on what the key strategic pillars are and see how we can achieve most of what we have left with long time unachieved. You know, so yes, the One Local Government, One Product thing is still, you know, in process. But, you know, before that is the fact that we need to be able to achieve having to put in place industrial clusters and industrial parks that have to concentrate and aggregate, you know, different, you know, products, you know, in common areas across the country. We need to be able to see how much we can work and achieve in terms of the present ongoing industrial cluster program that is receiving funding from Afrexim Bank and all of that. I think that when all of this is done, it gets us closer and closer to achieving the broad goals and objectives of the One Local Government, One Product, you know, program.
Yeah, Honorable Minister, I was just smiling when you were saying, I don't know whether even China is that ambitious with one local government, one product. It sounds to me like more of a political tokenism, and I don't see it working. I'm going to tell you the truth. What you said about those clusters looks a bit more realistic. I know when politicians want to talk, they make promises like that, and it never comes true. So we know what works, what doesn't work, and I don't think we should overflow on issues that are very far-fetched and between. Look at our budget, $40 billion for a whole nation, and even with that, we're running a deficit. So there are so many things you look at as triggers that makes it practically impossible. Is it an ambition? Yes, it's cool to have such ambition, but realistically, I don't know where we're going to go with that. So let's look at what can work. Many years ago, we had over 200 textile industry, Kaduna and several other places. Today, I spoke with the experts and the practitioners in that space. That number has dropped to 10% of that, about 20 of effective textile industry. What is your ministry doing to revive the textile industry? At least that is one thing we can lay hands on beyond the One Local Government, One Product projection.
Well, thank you. I think you're also making my own argument. I think you're also, advancing that argument because in response to the one local government product thing, I mean, I'd already appreciated and underscored how ambitious it is, and I talked about industrial cluster, industrial parks. So it's the same manner I'm going to approach this present question, and to say, for example, that the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in terms of its, direction, in industrial growth and prospects, it is part of the economic, the broader economic reform agenda of the administration.
Oh dear, we're about to get the real answer. We hope we can get the minister back. He was speaking to a very fundamental issue, Ayo, and on the issue of textile industry. I know that. Okay, Honorable Minister, I was trying to stall to make sure you come back. So please continue.
You hear me now?
Yes, fantastic. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so what I was saying is that, it's a few months ago, I mean, I embarked on the...
Oh dear. Okay, we'll try and reconnect with the Honorable Minister. We had the concern. Well, the concern is here. Maybe this is another part we need to fix. Maybe Minister Bosun is watching this. He needs to help us with broadband penetration.
Okay, well, there is the believability is what you spoke to concerning before we, have the Senate.
One local government, one product.
No, believability generally,
okay.
Because sometimes it's just those are just the issues. So let me ask Mr. Farouk before we hopefully get the minister back. Sometimes the challenge is people don't even trust that we are, or have the assurance or confidence, just as Jeffrey has expressed, that some of these initiatives will even see the light of day. So I was trying to, I wanted to ask you the other time about communication, how government communicates with the people, not just inform, but communicates with the people to get their feedback and get their buy-in on any initiative that they're going to come up with so that the people can co-own. How well would you say that as a nation, be it federal or state governments, we have been able to perform in that regard?
Thank you so much, Ayo. And I remember you started to ask the question around communication. And I think beyond communication, it's more about engagement and consultation. I know when the other guest who is in the studio in Abuja was speaking about some of the work that they've done at the subnational level. He mentioned that consultations have taken place with state governments. And I was hoping to hear that consultations had also taken place with stakeholders, citizen stakeholders at the subnational level. And unfortunately, that was something that was missing. I think that there is a gap that both the federal government and the subnational governments have when it comes to communicating with citizens and also receiving feedback on what exactly are some of the interests, what are some of the needs, what are some of the requirements that citizens and stakeholders have across different spaces. I know that in our political spaces, for instance, when we talk about governance or inclusion, we can host a town hall meeting that brings together members of one political party, and there's very little space left for opposition voices or for voices of dissent, which essentially is an ingredient of any democracy and helps to sharpen whatever conversation or discussions that are taking place. Communication must be two ways. That means there's communication from the government to citizens and stakeholders, and also from citizens and stakeholders to government as well, and not just communication, which is one way. And then beyond communication, it is important that when we're speaking about these issues, whether it is with MSMEs, or whether it is around policies such as the one product per local government, like the Honorable Minister was talking about, is that there needs to be two-way communication, there needs to be engagement with stakeholders and citizens, and there needs to be consultation as well.
All right. Thank you, Farouk. Let's get back to the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we understand you're back. There was a day I For whatever reason, Ayo did not come to work, but I was representing Ayo on that show, and I wore traditional for the first time on live TV. And the people in the textile industry sent me a message that you look nice. It's just that we can tell you that good percentage of what you're wearing is imported, and it was heartbreaking, which is why I take this question of textile industry super personal, because this is a gold mine for us in Nigeria alone, not to talk about export. Honorable Minister, you can continue.
Yes, please. I mean, I get your point. A country of about 230 million people. You can imagine if we all had to, depend on, we're self-sufficient in terms of our textile industry. You can imagine how huge. And I think that our past history more than, supports that fact, which is why this government is also focusing on having to revitalize the textile industry. I started by saying that I've done a multi-city tour of Kaduna and Lagos, textile establishments, UNTL and all of that, to see firsthand what it is. In Kaduna, I also went to Chelco, which is still up and running. And I think that, working presently, the government, they had talked about having to establish a CTG board, Cotton Textile and Garment, board. We're working on establishing, development council. Also, brought together all the different stakeholders, cotton, textile, and garment into one room, in a conversation. And, again, I drove from our industrial clusters and parks, we've come up with a position that the best way to see how we can revitalize this moribund, sector is, again, to establish industrial parks around these locations where we have these moribund industries, and I think that a lot of work is going on. Arise IIP, presently working with the Ogun State government, offers us quite some kind of, indication about what can happen. And, the Afri-Exim Bank had submitted a memo to Mr. President on this same subject. And I think that, so a lot of, multiple, directions and interests are involved in trying to make sure that we get back the lost glory of this subsector. And I think that if you even find out in terms of the dressed fashion of Nigerians at the moment, I think that it more than supports the fact that we're getting more and more traditional. And I think that, we try to see how, in fact, our present initiative also has to do with the fact that not so much cotton alone, there are some other byproducts, the petrochemical industry that are also part of, in terms of fiber. So we're also coming up with quite a lot of, innovations, a lot of new renewed thinking that can support the growth of this sector and get us back to where we were before and even be able to more than overcome it.
For the sake of sustainability, Senator, what happened to the textile industry? And how do we ensure we don't go back there again? You talked about it being moribund. It's beyond moribund. A lot of jobs have been lost. A lot of destinies have been lost to it. So what happened historically to the textile industry, and how do we ensure, as you bring it back, we don't go back to that era?
Well, I think we lost it to, the kind of unfair competition that, our textile industry was exposed to from China and from some other clients. We couldn't compete. We lost it, because of a lot of the people who smuggling, and activities and all of that. And I think that the way to go to, that we don't go back to this has to do with, various policy initiatives that we put in place. How, for example, even in terms of, the cost of production, the fact, for example, that, China and other, people, Chinese, they came into the country and, because of the incentives and other things that their own industries and all that are exposed to in their countries, they're able to bring in, cheaper, fabric and textile materials that, our own couldn't compete. So all of that, the cost of doing business, all of these things are the things, for example, that we expect that the Nigerian industrial policy at the general level is going to be able to address. And then, sector by sector, various policies, initiatives are also going to be able to address and to respond. There are incentives that government in itself also has to be prepared to be able to provide, in order to make us competitive enough. Don't forget we're also in an era where we're talking about the AFCFTA, and all of that, just so that Nigeria doesn't become a dumping ground. Nigeria has to compete and compete, effectively. So the issue of competitiveness, infrastructure development and competitiveness, one of the strategic pillars of our new, Nigeria industrial policy, remain key and remain very important in terms of how not to go back, to those challenges and those mistakes that got us to where we are. So the various strategic pillars of Nigeria industrial policy will help us a great deal, at the global level. But, sector by sector, the various, policy instruments that we're going to put in place will be able to protect our local industries. Mr. President, some months back, made a pronouncement, a very profound one, on the Nigerian First policy. And I think that practicalizing this and implementing and getting it to happen are some of the things, for example, that the new initiatives and interests in terms of revitalizing moribund industries will make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past.
All right, Senator. Well, I'm glad you talked about the Nigeria First policy that was revived this year, and also the industrial policy, which was validated in September, which is supposed to build around domestic value addition, which led to the 30% value addition rule for raw materials. We know, or we heard of some controversies around that. That's the 30% addition to raw materials before it can be exported. Where are the cottages that will help these raw materials, the process of adding value to these raw materials? How do you measure 30%? And there are some individuals or players in the industry, in the real sector, who complain about this 30% at compulsory addition of value, that it's actually deterring them from their businesses.
Okay, now let me put this in proper context. Like you said, I mean, it's the Nigeria industrial policy was not just validated some months back. That policy has been approved by the Federal Executive Council. So we have a Nigeria industrial policy. Now, having said so, you talked about the 30%, value addition. Again, that bill, is still before the National Assembly. I think it's been passed by one of the chambers. The other chamber is yet to pass it. But having said so, I think that we need to get serious as a country. We need to be able to be very, deliberate and determined and intentional about whether we actually want to achieve the industrial growth that this country deserves or not. And we need to, focus on jobs, on productivity, on export, on MSMEs and all of that. So if that is our focus and our interest and emphasis, then I think that there is no decision, no policy of government that is not going to have some kind of fallout, some kind of backlash. So, I mean, and that is why the 30% value addition, which for me is going to be a game changer. But achieving a game changer is not going to come, cheap. It's not going to come easy, and all of that. I think that at this point, in the next couple of hours, we're going to start 2026. Nigeria cannot afford to be paying, kid gloves, and all of that to industrial development and growth. So, I mean, 30% value addition is the minimum that our country should aspire for. I mean, like I said, there's going to be some backlash. I mean, it's I give an example in terms of the share note ban, which initially was for 6 months and all of that. I mean, there will always be pushback. What I can say, for example, is that
my apologies,
with some
Senator.
Companies,
the question then would be,
were set up several years ago, lab group, for
my
example.
sincere apologies, Honorable Minister, if you can hear me. The question then would be, I mean, you've talked about the fact that we need to jumpstart a whole load of stuff, and that's amazing. It's what many people want to hear. The question then is, what is the vision that everyone must buy into? I mean, you would have, traveled enough to know how some of these countries decided to position themselves. Another 5 years we're going to do this, another 10 years we're going to do this. As you said, we are entering 2026 in a couple of hours or so now. So what should Nigerians be looking forward to in the year ahead, in the decade ahead, so that we can say, okay, in the production sector? So what is it that Nigerians should be looking forward to from the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment in the year 2026?
Well, I think think that, a lot of that is what this conversation has been dwelling on. I mean, it's, under industry, for the first time in several years, we have a Nigerian industrial policy, which, we are determined to implement. I mean, we are concerned with the execution of that policy. Early in 2026, that policy is going to be formally unveiled. And that unveiling is going to come with, having implementation guidelines and all of that. So if this policy is implemented, and you look at the about 5, strategic pillars of this policy, I mean, infrastructural, development and, competitiveness. Look at the issue of diversification and value chain, and all of that. Look at the issue of investment promotion and business environment reforms. Look at issues that have to do with innovation, technology, and digital industrialization, and look at sustainability in terms of green growth and climate. So all of these things are things that will be in focus going into 2026. And focusing on this and making sure that this is achieved in itself is going to have a rebound effect in terms of our industrial growth and productivity. I've said it at some point in the course of this conversation that our focus in 2026 as a ministry, particularly under the mandate of industry, is to continue to emphasize jobs. It's industrial growth and industries that will provide the job that we need. It's productivity. Our country will not make progress without productivity. And that productivity is going to be achieved by the level and extent of industrial good we're able to achieve. The Nigerian industrial policy has an aspiration in terms of what the contributions of industry should be. It's going to be, good and in terms of growth as a country, what is going to happen as we industrialize and as we manufacture more and more and export. It's the entire value chain, is going to be implicated in all of that. So all of this, and then the MSMEs, which remains the engine of growth, and then the various statistics have more than shown so. The fact, for example, that we've got about 40-something million MSMEs, and all of that, and that about 98% of these are micro. The contribution to GDP is about 46%. In terms of job employment, about 80-something% of employment is to industry. So all of these things would remain the focus and the emphasis going into 2026 by the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. And how much we're able to accomplish this and all of that would be, quite, very important to us as a ministry.
All right, Honorable Minister. Obviously, you have your job cut out for you for 2026, especially because, that industrial policy, you just got the approval. So we will be looking closely at how it's going to be implemented in 2026. But we have to thank you so much for your time on the program.
I'm happy to have you look as closely, and let's work together to get this done.
We certainly will follow you up. Honorable Minister, Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, Senator John Eno. Thank you so much.
Minister of State, Industry. Thank you.
Minister of State, Industry, Senator John Eno.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and views on the program.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get this reaction also from Mr. Johnson, since he is connected to this ministry directly, a special advisor to the president. So, Mr. Johnson, thank you for your patience. So, I'm sure you heard what the minister said, and it's a big thing planned for 2026. And it all goes around the small businesses. So you're a special advisor to the president. What would you be doing differently? You talked about the issue of funding, but we know that's not the only thing. We have the new tax law that begins in a couple of hours, but we also have the challenge of infrastructure, especially power. So what would you be advising the president differently that will ease the operations of small businesses in 2026?
Thank you very much for your question. First, I must say that when we started this program, recall that I had asked about cooperation, collaboration with the subnational, and I don't know if it's Ayo or Geoffrey, one of them had asked, one of the anchors had asked that question, and I had spoken to that. But when the Honorable Minister came up, I actually realized that I forgot to actually mention that his ministry has been very, very supportive of everything we do. Because apart from subnational and international cooperation or collaborations. It's also important that there is internal support and collaborations. For instance, if we have a scheme from the presidency and we do not have the buy-in of the ministry, we will not go as far as we intend to go if we don't get the collaboration or the support of the ministers. So that being said, just to mention out there that virtually every clinic, for instance, the minister has availed us with his presence. If we have done 10, it's been about 9 of them, basically. So that shows enormous support.
All right, Mr. Johnson.
Yes. Not just the clinics and everything we do as well.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
Now, with regards to 2026.
We're totally out of time, Mr. Johnson. I'll have to pause in. Let me bring in Farouk. Your last word, Mr. Ibrahim. You look at governance. So let's project. You projected into 2026. It's election year. From the civil society organization point of view, what should we be looking at?
So there are a lot of things that we should look forward to when we do some kind of forecasting towards the elections. One is the quick passage of the Electoral Reform Act, especially as it impacts governance and if there are any constitutional amendments that would be passed. But I think on the other hand, there are a lot of conversations around the new tax laws, understanding how this affects businesses and young people and empowerment for young people as well. I think another very important thing is looking at voter turnout. And we just released a survey talking about voter intentions and how Nigerians want to come out and vote. But security is going to be a huge issue. I know that as we continue the program around the year in review, we're also going to be looking at some of the security challenges and how to tackle them. But there are so many issues. Some people say Nigeria is a country of issues, and we can spend the whole day discussing the different issues. But
incidentally, Mr. Farouk, just yesterday we were talking about security and a number of other issues like that. But it's cheering to talk about these things, and not just to talk about them, but to really drill down on the issues and trust that not just the government, but the people also take ownership of the process and embrace it in a way that it's all in our favor. Ibrahim Farouk, Africa Program Coordinator, IAGA Africa, as well as Mr. Temitola Adekunle Johnson, Special Advisor on Job Creation and MSMEs to the President. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this evening. Well, I guess that's the show.
For the year.
For the year, imagine. But Happy New Year is in order.
I guess.
And Happy New Year to you, fellow Nigerians. There is no advance. You can't advance it. It's already here. Amaya Makinde. We'll be going to be closing with something, and I think Jeffrey is going to talk to us about that. Amaya Makinde.
I'm Ini John Mekwa.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzama. So thank you so much. It's been a great year. Thank you. On behalf of Channels Television, we thank you for being with us. It's a brand new year coming, and we believe you're going to be with us to bring you up to speed with all the happenings in the polity and in politics. But we'll leave you with a reel of the prominent Nigerians we've lost in the year 2025. I want to thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Ozonga. Bye-bye.